Members, when we suspended last evening, we were considering the Education and Training, Vocational Education and Training System Amendment Bill, and we were debating Part 1. Part 1 is the debate on clauses 4 to 39, main amendments and schedules 1 to 5. The question is again that Part 1 stand part. Francisco Hernandez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I also want to thank the Madam Chair for, the Minister for engagement last night on this bill, particularly her willingness to engage in hours and hours of discussion about how great the politics around this country would be if necessary. The opposition is also looking forward to that. I also wanted to acknowledge something she said last night around the pastoral code issue, around how that might have prevented some people in North Tech from being able to stay the night at the marae. I mean, obviously, that pastoral code was a response to some very sad tragedies around, halls of residence. There's a lot of stuff that was going that shouldn't be. I've had mixed feedback from talking to stakeholders around the country around it. Some of the groups that I've been talking to don't think it's strong enough. Some people that I've talked to in acknowledging the submission made by the University of Otago on the University Advisory Group, where they called for a review of it. A cross-party basis of reviewing it could potentially be on the cards, depending on the terms of reference. We're willing to engage constructively with the Minister on that bill. Turning, though, on this bill, I want to start going clause by clause a little bit. I mean, acknowledging that some colleagues might still have some specific questions around their specific polytechnics to ask. And I want to turn to Part 1, Clause 5, Subpart 5, around the definition of relevant services. Now, the relevant services here includes the design and development of micro-credentials, the development and ongoing operation of a quality management system, and the provision of shared administration and information services for 2 or more federation polytechnics. I do believe that there are other relevant services that could potentially be added to that clause. For example, I'm thinking in particular, as we've been just talking about earlier in this debate, pastoral care issues could perhaps come into shared services and something that could be shared across the different federation polytechs or 1 or more polytechs. Particularly disability services and disability support services in particular. And I want to acknowledge the submission that was made, the joint submission that was made by the Disabled Persons Assembly and the National Disabled Students Association on the Vocational and Education Training Amendment Bill. And they talked in that survey about how, in their submission, about how 38% of disabled people aged 15 years and over who are not currently in post-secondary education or training would like to do so in the future, but face numerous barriers in accessing it. So I think including disability services and the relevant services that could be shared across the different services could be a way that we could get a cohesive approach on this, because I do think that is something that we need to make sure that's not lost with Te Pukenga, is that it had a very good focus on reducing inequity, between mainstream learners and learners with disabilities, and reducing the education gaps with Pacifica and Maori cohorts. And that was talked about in the annual review hearing with Te Pukenga. So we would like to see the disability services potentially included in this list of relevant services, as well as pastoral care services. And another thing that could potentially go into it is marketing services. We do know that there's been an increased focus, and particularly international student support as well. We do know that there's been an increased focus on getting the students, the international students back. You know, it started recovering in 2023, and there's been a continuation and acceleration of that trend during this government, and we do feel like having provision for international support services and the marketing component of that could be something that's beneficial to the vocational education and training system going forward if the different ITPs could share services and support between them in either the Federation or the Anchor Federation context. I have many more calls to take during this debate, but I'll leave my contribution at that.
Honourable Penny Simmons.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to the member. I appreciate that very constructive start to his question where he offered to review and the unintended consequences that have come from the pastoral code that the Green Party brought in. I think that's very sensible, and I'm keen to talk further on that. In terms of the Federation, the services, the shared services, it isn't an exhaustive list, obviously, in the legislation. I would expect that the list will change over time. I absolutely accept what the member is saying about shared services for disability support, pastoral care, marketing, international marketing. All those things, I think, are open to be able to be included in the sort of shared services, and I think the member has completely grasped the essence of the Federation, that it's going to be about what are the services that are needed by the Federation partners and what they can do to work together to be more effective, to save costs, to be able to provide better service to students. So thank you for bringing those matters, and they are exactly the sort of things that I would expect might be shared. Thank you.
Honourable Phil Twyford.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning. First call on this, what's promising to be a lengthy and detailed examination of this
Lovely.
bill. Just want to make some opening comments. I'm sure I share it with all members in the House, a commitment to the importance of building a first-rate vocational education training system for this country. We know how important it is for the social and economic outcomes that we all strive for. I'm particularly interested through the course of the debate this morning to touch on what I think is the increased complexity in the system that is reflected in this bill, and I'll be keen to ask some questions particularly around the federation model that is contained here. Like my colleague Shannon Halbert, also keen to explore the costs that are not directly contained in the wording of this bill, but are nevertheless the elephant in the room in terms of successful transition. And we'll be doing that particularly around the sections of the bill that are around the establishment of the new ISPs, the new polytechs. One of the areas that we want to talk about is the weakening of the requirement to engage with Māori, and I want to direct the Minister's attention to section 318 in the bill. This is just one of a number of issues that we'll be discussing over the next few hours. Section 318 basically gets rid of the text which was amends the text by deleting a requirement that the council of a polytech should, as far as is reasonably practical, reflect the communities in the region that the polytech serves, and then it specifies industries and commercial activities, ethnic, gender and socio-economic diversity, and diversity of abilities, and include Māori in that governance of the polytechs. And it's replaced by a clause which says the council of a polytechnic should, as far as is reasonably practical, reflect the communities in the region that the polytechnic serves. So I have two questions for the Minister. Why, given the centrality of the treaty in our country's public life, and matters of public policy. The importance of Māori being at the table and fully engaged in decision making and so on, including in the governance of our country's institutions. Why would the government deliberately exclude the reference to including Māori in the governance of polytechs? That's the first question. And the second is, why replace the specificity that was in the original text with a phrase that simply says, reflect the communities? Well, what does reflect the communities mean? I mean, our communities are made up of a myriad of different identities and qualities. Does it mean they should all live in, the people on the board should live in the same place? Does it mean they should have brown hair or blue eyes? It could literally mean anything to say reflect the communities. And I think we owe it to the communities we serve that if you want to give a direction about who should be, and what groups should be included in the governance of a board that is serving a particular community, why not say it? Why not be more precise? And I put it to the Minister that this, and I'd like to know whether this is kind of a deliberate vagueness here, and what kind of outcomes she's suggesting. Who does she think should be? And if she does have in mind specific groups that should be included in the governance of a given polytech, why not say it? Because otherwise, how are people going to know?
Honourable Penny Simmons.
Madam Chair, thank you very much, Madam Chair. I did address this yesterday, but I'm very happy to go over it again. I think it's an important part. Can I also just thank the member for talking about how important this sector is, particularly important for our government, given the Going for Growth agenda, and very happy to talk about costs as we go through the day, because we've got some very good stories around costs. But in terms of this particular section, I think it's very important to ensure that a piece of legislation like this can be enduring, and to put exhaustive lists in really constrains things to the moment now. And so by having a much less exhaustive list, to be leaving it open-ended, to be leaving it inclusive, and to be giving the intent that allows the local region to look at their region. And I've said this on multiple occasions. A successful polytechnic is one that is engaged with their community, that is integrated with their community, that takes notice of their community and works with their community. So this is very much about insisting that it is not a tick box exercise, oh good, we've done what we should do in legislation. This is about ensuring polytechnics are taking notice of their community, are reflecting their community, and communities will evolve over time. So being able to be open enough, inclusive enough to take note and reflect their community at any given time. And I would expect there would be virtually no community in this country that would not have a significant proportion of Māori in it, and therefore I would expect that that would be reflected in the council. And in some, it may well be a majority of council members, but let's leave it as open and inclusive as possible for the local regions, local people to make that call on the basis of the makeup of their community.
Carl Bates.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for the opportunity to ask the Minister another question this morning. It's a pity that we're revisiting issues that were addressed last night already, but I just want to acknowledge, I want to acknowledge the Minister's focus on enduring legislation, Madam Chair, and it's a pity that the previous government spent $1 billion trying to solve a problem that was only about a few million at the time, and didn't create an enduring solution. So I just want to acknowledge the Minister's focus on creating an enduring solution in the polytechnic sector. A part of that is the establishment of industry skills boards, Madam Chair, and the establishment of the industry skills boards to ensure that industry are able to have a role in the polytechnic system in New Zealand. My question for the Minister, Madam Chair, is regarding the representation on those industry skills boards and how they'll be created to ensure that the polytechnic sector is supported by industry. Specifically, given the conversation we've just had, how will Māori be represented on those industry skills boards, Madam Speaker? Thank you.
Honourable...
That's right, thank you.
Sorry, I wasn't sure if I thought you were standing.
Yes, I was bouncing up, I was.
Honourable Penny Simmons.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, Madam Chair. And so, look, the Industry Skills Board are such an integral part of the whole vocational education and training system. Industry should be driving our vocational education and training system, and so that is why the Industry Skills Boards have been put in place to be driven by industry. 6 of the governing positions will be by industry, will be put there by industry. 2 will be put by the Minister, but the Minister can only appoint people that industry have nominated. So the Minister is constrained again by ensuring that they are industry people to be there. And so the whole notion of our industry qualifications being driven by industry is integral to this. So the Industry Skills Boards will set the standards, will develop the qualifications, will undertake the moderation, will give endorsement to those entities that can run the programs, will give advice to TC about where funding should go so it's in the right place at the right time. So this is about industry being put in the driver's seat again of ensuring that industry qualifications are fit for what industry want out in the workforce. So it's really absolutely being driven by industry. In terms of the membership, and I just want to get to the right clause, and I'm hoping someone on the back bench, 356 is it? Let me get to that quickly. 362, thank you. Yes, I didn't think it was that. 362, the membership. So we expect that the membership will give effect to the tertiary education strategy, the roles of the board. They will be giving effect to the tertiary education strategy and the particular populations that are referenced in the tertiary education strategy. And sorry, I'm quickly trying to find it and hoping someone will tell me which page, which clause it is. 370E. 370E, thank you very much. Here we are, yes. We'll have regard to the needs of Māori and other population groups as identified in the tertiary education strategy issued under Section 7. So it is incredibly important. The tertiary education strategy is absolutely wanting to ensure that there is equity of access and there is an absolute emphasis on ensuring Māori are achieving. Thank you.
Commissioner Tangi Manuel.
Tēnā koe e te manga o te whare, tēnā hoki koe e te minita. Not to relitigate anything, but actually just trying to get some specific answers and clarity for communities throughout Ikaroa Rāwhiti and Aotearoa, particularly small communities like the one I live in and several of whom I represent. I want to preface my comments by thanking EIT for their service throughout Tai Rāwhiti over the years, servicing people as far north as Pōtaka, tai noa atu ki roto o Kahungunu. Madam Chair, I just want to pick up on the Minister's statements about giving regard to Māori. It's very hard for me to stomach that when in fact include Māori is being struck out. So I just want to ask the Minister for clarity. Can she accept that the reason that this clause was put in there is because Māori were not adequately represented? And I would like an explanation of how giving regard to Māori representation will look. So, for example, in an area like Tai Rāwhiti, where 56% of the population are Māori, does that mean 56% of the council will be Māori? I'm just really interested in how that will be addressed and delivered upon, because those clauses were put, oh, hang on, we've got an expert across here. We've got, what was that? What was that expert on Māori representation? Nothing, kia ora. Now, can she appreciate that clauses...
Calm down.
What was that?
Calm down. I invite...
What's that, Mr. Bates?
I invite the questioner to continue her questions to the Minister.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Get those experts to settle down. Now, so does she appreciate that clauses like that were included because of a lack of representation of Māori, and how exactly is she going to ensure the balance of representation? Actually, by leaving it, I think she's making it more complex. Hoi anō. Now, it was really awesome also to hear the Minister talking about primary industries and how they will be represented. I'm definitely interested in that, in areas throughout Ikaroa Rāwhiti where industries like forestry, etc. are major drivers of employment and economy. So what's that balance going to look like for smaller regions? Now, I refer back to section 314D, which provides that one of the characteristics of polytechnics is that they improve outcomes for Māori students and trainees and Māori communities in collaboration with Māori and iwi and interested persons. In particular, the part where it says improve outcomes for Māori students. Now, how can this be ensured when areas like Tairāwhiti and EIT Tairāwhiti, who have a Māori population of 56%, a rangatahi population of 70.4%, have lost 40 academic and support roles? How is that improving outcomes for Māori students? Now, we're talking about centralisation as well. What assurances does that give for communities who cannot necessarily get the amount of students or quote-unquote bums on seats that may be required by the institution but still deserve access to education? What assurances can the Minister provide for people across rural communities from Wharekahika to Tolaga Bay, even actually in Gisborne now, that massive amounts of staff have been lost, that they will have access to education? Recently, we've had a really good tranche of nursing students come out of EIT. Our hospital is only at 63% staffing capacity. What assurances can the Minister give to ensure access to education and flow on to employment in our smaller regions? I also think about the wonderful beauty course being delivered out of Maraenui. What assurances can the Minister give to them that they will continue to have access to education and employment? Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honourable Penny Simmons.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I am so pleased that the member asked me to discuss EIT. What a wonderful polytechnic, wonderful institution, absolutely delighted to talk about, and what a great example she has given. A community that has a population of 56% who are Māori. This clause enables the local community, not the Minister sitting in Wellington, but the local community to decide what the makeup of that board, of that council should be for EIT. What a wonderful opportunity to ensure that that 56% of proportion of Māori in that population is well represented on that council. And if it's not, then they should be looking very closely at their local board that are put in place. I'm delighted to talk about EIT, and the member's quite right. There have been some losses there, not as many in some places, but there have been some losses there. One of the things that I've been incredibly disappointed about for EIT, they had a very difficult time under Cyclone Gabrielle. Their campus was ruined and they had to rebuild it again. The insurance, there's a bit of a gap in the insurance, and no help was given to them in the previous government there. But even worse than this, and this is a reason, and I hope the member listens very carefully to this, this is one of the reasons why redundancies have had to be made there. Under the previous government, $6.5 million was clawed back by the TEC because under the closure of their campus from the cyclone, they didn't meet their targeted numbers. So instead of doing what happened when there was an earthquake in Christchurch and they were able to keep their numbers for a number of years, $6.5 million was clawed back and they had to drop down their base number that they started from, and I'm having to rebuild that again for them. And the member will be delighted to know, absolutely delighted to know, I'm sure that EIT will be getting $1.559 million under the strategic fund in the next 2 years. I'm also looking under the recapitalisation at what we can do to help them there to address that dreadful situation where $6.5 million was clawed back from them during the previous government. Thank you.
Taku te whirus.
Tēnā koe, Madam Chair. Tēnā koe, Minister. I'm sure we all know the importance of education. I spent the last 15 years before coming here in ITPs and universities. I was at NMIT for 7 years. While Penny was down south at SIT, we've hashed all these.
Well, the minister, not the first
the minister.
name.
Well, the minister. These things have been hashed out time and time again. I mean, we're here considering a new federation model when the one that's being thrown out was a federation model. We're here talking about Māori representation on councils. There's never been good Māori representation on councils, and these adjustments, you got no clue, mate, no clue. And these adjustments, Penny knows, the minister knows, these adjustments won't achieve it. These adjustments won't achieve it. Hey, well, Mana Whenua managed to produce good Māori input into councils, but it's not as a result of any government law. It's as a result of iwi determination and presence in those rohe. Don't you just love listening to the guys who know nothing about something?
I'm only noting the speaker's comments, and I'd just ask the others to just tone theirs down a bit. Thank you.
So, the key role for education and training, probably more so training in this country's current situation. Training, getting people from one job to the next one or out of work into a job. Okay, vital for the future economy. And here we are 2 years into solving the problem and we're not quite there yet. Does the sector have to wait another 3 years to get the next revamp of the same ideas? We need the training done effectively and we need it done quick. That's what the economy needs. In 2010, Arthur Graves came down. He came down probably about 2012. He came down to NMIT and sold us the story of why Māori and Pacific trade training was so desperately needed. And his story was, we've got a retiring 30% of the workforce. They're the baby boomers exiting over the next decade or more. And that 30% of retirees exiting that workforce were being replaced by a 30% cohort of young Māori and Polynesians. Now, the conundrum for the government of the time was that the legislative settings and indeed all of the settings in education continued to produce poor to despicable results for those young Māori and Polynesians. So that was their problem. Okay, so what's the fix? Māori and Pacific trade training. Okay, first cab off the rank, Ngāi Tahu showed up with their money, he toki ki te rika, away they go. Raging success for more than a decade. And then slowly but surely all the other regions come on, they're supported by their iwi, and that's the story of Māori and Pacific trade training. And the problem it was trying to address is the skill gap in the labour workforce of the economy. Now, if you can't get that right, your future economy is just buggered. And so here we are, continuing to talk about the same challenges and trying to fix them, whilst the solution or the need continues to go unaddressed. So it needs some speed, Minister. I know you appreciate that. So, you know, that 30% young Māori and Pacific Island cohort who are going to drive the future economy, they deserve action fast. The iwi people will support them. The community people will support them like they already have. They need the legislative settings and the right policies to enable good action. Now, unfortunately, the government's pulled the funding on Māori and Pacific trade training. No. And in Otago, the managers who look after all of that apprentice work that those Māori and Pacific trade training graduates went into have experienced a 67% downturn in take-up of apprenticeships by young Māori and Polynesians. These are the problems on the table for any solutions that you have here, Ete Minister.
Honourable Penny Simmons.
Oh, thank you very much, Madam Chair. Delighted to be talking about particularly NMIT, where the member had 15 years' experience across a number. Of course, I had 30 years' experience, but it's great that there are others that have got experience in this sector. I particularly want to acknowledge that the polytech sector is known for training Māori and Pacifica, and I think, and I will stand corrected if someone will give me a different figure, but I believe that the polytech sector trains more Māori than any other parts of the tertiary education sector, something that I'm incredibly proud of. In terms of that wonderful institution, NMIT in Nelson, Marlborough, what a great institution that is, and I am so delighted that we have found a young star there, young Ngaitahu Olivia Hall, who is the director there, has done wonderful work there. Also a member, of course, of the Iwi Leaders Forum for Education, and has again done wonderful work feeding into these challenges. So look, I absolutely agree with what the member said. It needs to happen fast. The changes need to happen fast. I will correct the member that Māori and Pacifica Trades training still exists, is still going, and I am absolutely looking forward to that growing as the economy takes off again, because construction is doing so well in the south. So I thank the member for bringing to the House's attention how well the Polytechnic serves our Māori communities.
Shannon Hilbert.
Madam Chair, my first contribution for the morning. And, you know, I acknowledge that the Minister's been in this game for a long time. And, you know, I acknowledge that the government members, both last night and tonight, have launched out. Our chair for the Education Select Committee, Carl Bates, has asked specifically around the impact of Māori and some of the specific changes in the legislation that were made by the government members on the Select Committee, and given the Minister the opportunity to respond to those. Madam Chair,
and
however...
that's fine. It's good to see government members taking calls rather than closure motions, right?
I applaud them for that. Long may it continue over the next few hours.
Only if they're relevant, right?
But I do, speaking of relevancy, Madam Chair, I do want to come back specifically on the Māori piece, Te Tiriti piece, that I don't believe that that the Minister has answered. And last night I did ask a series of questions relevant to Section 314D in particular that the Minister didn't respond to. And the main theme there is the amendments to Te Tiriti o Waitangi. And I guess given the sheer experience, was it 25 years, Minister, in the tertiary sector? 30 years in the tertiary sector, she would have a very good understanding around the inequities that sit in the system, particularly for Māori. And I'm interested to understand from her why she reached out in this legislation. So what we've seen through submissions is very few amendments overall, but she did go out of her way with her government members and select committee process to make changes to the Māori piece and the Te Tiriti piece. So my first question for the ministers, I'm just really interested to understand, out of 106 pages of legislation, you've really gone out of your way to make changes there. It does dilute Māori representation and therefore will directly impact on achieving Māori outcomes. My colleague, Kushla Tongaire Manuel, spoke specifically about EIT, and I appreciate Stuart Smith, really has an interest around better French representation around council. All over to you. We can speak to the French section a little bit later on, but I just reserve the right, Madam Chair. I just want to speak about the Māori parts. I'm keen to cover that off first before we get to the French, Mr. Smith. So I'm keen to understand from the Minister the whakapapa in her view of why these changes were important, given all the changes that we might require in this particular amendment. I come back to, I've got 2 minutes in this piece, but you'll see in the Select Committee report, I'll take that one and I'll take some more too, until we have specific answers to why the government has made changes specifically to create worse outcomes for Māori and to dilute reference to Te Tiriti. So if I may, Madam Chair, I'm very keen to get a good understanding, because this sits at the baseline of the success of our tertiary sector. If we don't get on top of this particular piece, there won't be better outcomes. We'll continue to have an inequitable system and some education and vocational training in this country. So, if I come back to the departmental report, clearly submissions related to the Crown's Te Tiriti o Waitangi obligations were common amongst many submissions. They were mostly themed around the removal of explicit Te Tiriti obligations for the vocational education sector, such as the obligations under Section 91G of the Principal Act, the absence of effective engagement with Māori throughout the drafting process, and the potential lack of ongoing accountability to Māori and Māori representation through governance settings. Now, that wasn't just a handful, Madam Chair, so my 2 questions there for the Minister is, what's the whakapapa here? Why has she gone out of her way to make these changes? Is there influence from the ACTS Party and New Zealand First on her in this sense? But what advice has she received around
Topic of what's in the bill around giving regard to Māori in local politics, etc. I think the Minister has covered that quite well, unless there are specific clause questions that people want to refer to. No more general questions on that front. I want specific ones. Ingrid Leary.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to ask the Minister about an elephant in the room in the Lower South in terms of why she is tearing apart our region when it comes to tertiary education. It is easy for members of her party to say to people, don't take things personally. But I would like her to consider how personal it is to the people in Dunedin when we have our whole economy is predicated on health and education through the tertiary sector. We have had this government stymie the ability of the new Dunedin Hospital to be a gold star hospital that will provide world-leading tertiary level excellence medical education. We have had now the Polytech kneecapped because it has been set side by side, pitted against the Southern Institute of Technology. And so my question is, how is that not personal? And how can she assure people in Dunedin that there is no conflict of interest when she was indeed the CE of the Southern Institute of Technology since 1997, when she went into politics with a clear mandate?
I'm not sure that the Minister actually sits with a responsibility for all politics. I don't believe that is a fair... It's not an accusation, but it's not a fair question in the context of what we're trying to do in this piece of legislation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would just point to the RIS, page 3, which talks about the lack of consultation, the lack of being able to assess the risks, and so one of my questions is who bears those risks, particularly when there is active competition between polytechs in the way this has been set up. These are questions that have been asked in the media and are being asked by locals, and this is an opportunity, in fact, for the Minister to show that this is not personal, because there is no clear rationale that has been explained to the people of the South as to why SIT gets treatment on one hand, including cabinet investment under her government, versus no funding and a requirement for the Otago Polytech to have a pathway to recovery, which the unions have described as a cost-cutting program. Madam Chair, these are very legitimate questions, and the people in Dunedin legitimately feel like they have been kneecapped. If that is not the case, then it is this is the Minister's opportunity to explain that and to explain away the culture of anxiety that has been described by staff and reported by the Otago Daily Times. This is an opportunity for her to explain to the between 30 and 60% of people, the whole workforce in Dunedin, between 30 and 60%, 30 at minimum, work in health and education. So these are very live questions in my part of the world. I'd like to commend the Polytech for coming out and being really open and robust at the beginning of the process to say that they were appalled by the lack of consultation by this Minister, that they did not know they were going to be part of the Federation until the announcement was made, that they sought and did not get a meeting with the Minister for some time because she was too busy to consult with them. If that is not something to be taken personally, then I would like to understand from the Minister what led to those actions, because it felt like kneecapping not only to the tertiary sector in Dunedin, but the greater Dunedin community, because education is our lifeblood. And time again we have seen from this government a kneecapping of our lifeblood in Dunedin and a disregard. And I would also say for context, Madam Chair, it does seem personal when this is the same Minister who at the 11th hour in a different capacity overturned a local government decision where local ratepayers had paid $18 million to get a decision made locally in local democracy around fresh water. It was this Minister who led the charge against that. Now, this is all relevant.
No, it's not relevant to this piece of legislation.
Then my question...
The last piece is not relevant to this.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My questions then really are around batting away the very strong perception of conflict of interest that exists for us locally, understanding from the Minister who she thinks bears the risk of her decisions, given that the RIS on page 3 makes it very clear that there was not time to adequately assess option 2B? And what can she say to claims locally that there is a privatisation agenda in tertiary education, because we have seen a mental health program cut from the Otago Polytech that is now suddenly appearing by a private provider in Dunedin? These are very vexed questions for our community, and I welcome a long explanation from the Minister to assure us that we should not take this personally.
Honourable Penny Simmons.
Oh, Madam Chair, am I pleased to be able to straighten out some of that misinformation that has just been put by that member. What a pity. What a pity. A wonderful polytechnic, Otago Polytechnic, that has been so damaged by Te Pūkenga, and all she wants to do is put out misinformation. I'm going to spell this out very clearly because I know that financial matters can be quite challenging for some members of the Labour Party. But let me make it very clear to you, there was no conflict of interest there. Otago Polytechnic, sadly, have a debt of $16 million, and to ensure that they are sustainable, I want to wrap support around them because I know how important that polytechnic is to Dunedin. That is why we have wrapped strong governance support around them. That is why I have enabled them to be in the Federation to get the additional support. And when the member tries to pit Otago Polytechnic against SIT, what an unfortunate thing to do, because here I am trying to recapitalise, trying to support Otago Polytechnic, and just the difference here is when you have no money in the bank and you have debt that I am trying to solve for them, if they run a deficit, what does she think will happen to that polytechnic? I do not want to see them in that position. Now let me give her the opposite situation in SIT, who went into Te Pūkenga with $40 million in reserves. Only $15 million of that will be ring-fenced, so they will not come out with the full amount that they went in with, because in the recapitalisation exercise we're having to ensure that we take away that debt from those that have got debt so that they have every chance of being successful in the future. And do you know what? Sorry, not you, Madam Speaker, Chair, I'm sure you know, but that member should be very aware that to take away that debt, a number of polytechnics that went in with significant reserves will not come out with the same level of reserves. So anytime you want to thank me for that, Member of Parliament for Taieri, you come and see me, because we are going to ensure that all the polytechnics come out in a way that they will be able to sustain the operations going forward. So thank you very much for the opportunity to be able to discuss that misinformation that has been spread by that member in Otago. Otago is a wonderful polytechnic, and I want to do the very best for them to ensure that they can continue to be a wonderful polytechnic going forward.
Honourable Phil Twyford.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, this will be the last contribution from our side on the question of treaty clauses and Māori representation. But the reason I want to take this call is that the Minister hasn't yet provided an understandable explanation for the removal of treaty clauses. We've talked about the issue generally and so on, but I'm really keen to hear from her why she is determined to strip references to Te Treaty out of this bill. And I point directly to Section 370C about the industry skills boards. Now, if I think about the Māori community in the communities that I represent in West Auckland, we have a very large, probably 1 in 5 of our people in the communities I serve are Māori. We have Te Kawerau, our Maki, our mana whenua in West Auckland. large Māori organisations like Te Whānau Waipareira. We have thriving marae and a network of Māori community organisations. There is significant leadership in our community where Unitec provides the essential service of vocational education and training. And West Auckland, like so many parts of the country, young Māori are the ones who have been so disadvantaged over time and desperately need responsive services and institutions in vocational education and training. Why would you take out from the charter of a vital piece of the machinery like the industry skills boards the obligation that a treaty clause conveys to engage fully with Māori leadership and with mana whenua to ensure that the right services are being delivered? I'm baffled by that. And in this debate so far, we've had a number of calls on this question, but I haven't yet heard from the Minister a clear explanation why she's determined to strip the treaty clause out, and I invite her to give us that.
Puhana Linden.
Tēnā koe, Madam Chair. Thank you for allowing me to speak on this bill, but also to respond to some of the kōrero that the Minister has placed in the House in relation to North Tech, and particularly marae-based days. Having been the director of the time, it was an effort for us to provide a place for students, yes, nursing students and others, to stay at the marae as a whare haumaru for them to study at North Tech. Because you see, Madam Chair, in Northland, it's hard to get around. We don't have public transport like urban settings. You'll be lucky to get a bus on time in Whangarei. And despite the best advocacy of students to Northland Regional Council to change the bus timetable, they wouldn't. And so students would have to start way earlier, get their kids off to school way earlier in order to catch a bus. So I want to go to the pastoral support code that the Minister did speak to and that the Green Party did support, because that code is the anchor, and maybe we need to review it. Because I've heard from Student Voice in particular that they want to strengthen it. And I'm going to talk to the bill, and I will continue to ask.
I was just going to say the Minister did agree to. The Minister did agree to what you were asking just before to when your colleague asked.
Kia ora, thank you. And it's great because from the Student Voice perspective, they certainly do feel ignored a lot of the time. And especially when you're paying, your voluntary student levy and it's going into a black hole sometimes, you don't know where the services are landing. So in terms of this legislation and some of the opportunities that we have is to strengthen a focus on pastoral support that has come through very clearly, as well as academic support. In vocational education, we have a number of students who come out of work or may have not had the opportunities in secondary education to lock down some of the key areas of literacy and numeracy. And having been Director Learner Support at North Tech, I know that we were inundated by requests to support in literacy and numeracy and the testing to support them understand what are their learning needs. Disability support in particular has been an area whereby polytechs don't necessarily have enough resource to support all of our learners to succeed. And if we can be explicit within the legislation that it is a need for disability, for academic support and pastoral support to be provided across the board, regions like Northland could thrive. That's one of the first cabs off the rank when there are cuts in the polytech sector, that often it is pastoral support that gets the cut. We have a significant number of Fs at risk right now in North Tech through the internal review, operational review, because of the requirement to be financially viable. And I hosted a hui on Monday the 6th of October. Unfortunately, my colleague Grant McCullum didn't come despite 100 from our sector. Business leaders, civic leaders, those who work with iwi and students and connected to education. If my colleague could stop heckling me so I could talk about Mairohe, you talk about Wanganui when you get a time. When you get a chance, you talk about Wanganui. You tell us how you're doing.
We're going to have less heckling both ways, and we're going to have questions to the Minister.
Absolutely.
Please.
Because what I want to ask the Minister, Te Mataro Education Trust.
Quiet.
Te Mataro Education Trust. Māori Pacific trade training provider for over 10 years in Taitokero. Hapu iwi working together were told by Northtec at short notice to evacuate the building in December 2024. The General Manager spoke to this issue at the Hui on the 6th of October and said, you know, we had a long-standing relationship with Northtec. We had been partners for such a long time, and yet the door was closed on Te Mataro abruptly, and they had to leave the office because they've been based at Future Trades in Dyer Street for a decade. And I was a former general manager of Te Mataro, so I know Māori Pacific trade training deeply. What appears to be the issue is that Māori Pacific trade training may be being retained internally now so that it can boost the pastoral support and that contract can be retained internally instead of valuing the hapu and iwi relationship that Te Mataro had committed to. Te Mataro is a valued member of hapu and iwi, providing pastoral support and work
point
brokerage.
of order from Sam Uffendale.
I appreciate the members coming to the close of her 5 minutes on this, but I'm not trying to question your judgment at all, Madam Chair, but from what we're hearing there, it sounds like a general debate speech talking about topics that is not pointed into any clauses relevant to the bill.
Yeah, and look, thank you for bringing that
Thank
up.
you.
And I was about to make a ruling after this speech, but I understand the Minister wants to take a call first. So
The Minister might want to reply. What is Māori Pacific trade training moving forward into the future when iwi and hapu groups like Te Mataro no longer have a place in the landscape? It's a missed opportunity and very sad to hear.
Honourable Penny Simmons.
Madam Chair, of course this has nothing to do with the bill that we are currently looking at, but I can give the member assurance that total funding of approximately 18.5 million has been allocated to Māori and Pacifica Trades Training, and the funding was fully allocated 24-25. Matters of PTEs and polytechnics are not a matter for the Minister to interfere in.
Okay, so I just indicated that I was going to make a bit of a judgment call now. We have been here this morning for an hour and I feel we've traversed a number of issues quite fully. We are getting quite repetitive and we are starting to relitigate some issues. I would request from here on in that I want members to refer to specific new clauses that have not yet been asked questions on, and I will take a call now from Shannon Halbert, who is
Kia ora, Madam Chair, and yes, you're right, we do have a lot to get through over the few more hours that we will be in this chamber, scrutinising the Minister, because there is 106 pages in this piece of legislation. I did outline for the Chair last night, and I know that this has been passed on, that we sought permission from the Chair to go through a process of being able to talk polytech by polytech, because there are implications in local context. We'll continue to do that, and I acknowledge that we've started on Northtec, we've started on EIT, but there are a number of polytechs that we would like to discuss as a result of the implications of this legislation. We would also like to do that with specific industries that are implicated. But Madam Chair, I also acknowledge that the responses to the Te Tiriti or Waitangi questions are insufficient, Minister. That there's two parts. I acknowledge that in your view you have responded to the Māori piece that is quite different to the references to Te Tiriti. So if you would honour us in giving your view of the world of why you've made a decision, we would really appreciate that as well as the sector would. But Madam Chair, taking your direction, I will move on to clause 315, section 315 should I say, which is around the establishment of the polytechs. I think there's a lot to traverse in this particular area. Submissions noted in the Ministry of Education departmental report that raised that there were alternative options. These were not adequately considered because of the ideological agenda of this government and the minister. The submissions noted concerns around ensuring collaboration between polytechnics remains under the new system and how important low volume provision would be retained. As one example, as the government loads an attack on young people at the moment, is if we look at level 1 and 2 foundation learning, there's simply not enough places for young people to access those particular programs in Auckland, as one example, even if the government wanted them to. There's not enough provision funded at level 1 and 2, and so, there's one implication there. But, Minister, what submissions or advice were received about retaining Te Pukenga or alternative options rather than a complete disestablishment and re-establishment? Because we know... Sorry? Stuart? Well, you are correct. Yeah, so Stuart Smith
It sounded like an oral question to me, so continue to ask the question, please.
Thank you. And I have continued to ask these questions through written, through oral questions, and across this piece of legislation, it is the emperor without clothes. It's the emperor without clothes, if anyone knows those stories, because the minister has been building this plane as it flies, because there is a lack of information. So that is my specific question in relation to this clause, and I've got a number of others, because she has not explained, Madam Chair, why she chose to disestablish Te Pukenga as opposed to tweak some of the challenges that the structure and the sector still faced, and underlying that, which I covered off in my opening statements, is the real question is she hasn't shown us the money. She hasn't shown us how this is a more financially viable model than what was in place. We don't think it is. And she keeps on talking about, I've invested this in the transition fund, in the strategic fund. She's only got 20 million in that much. She can't afford it. Clause 315, Stuart Smith, establishment of polytechnics. Okay? Of which there's a number, if you'll listen up. But that question remains. Why did you disestablish and go against advice that you received to re-establish something that you don't have a cost-benefit analysis on?
Honourable Penny Simmons.
Oh my goodness, what a wonderful question. Why did I choose to disestablish Te Pukenga? Let me count the ways. Te Pukenga, what a failed experiment. What a dreadful example of going with form before function. What a dreadful way to try and solve a few specific problems in the sector by creating far, far more. Let me see, perhaps the issue that it was going to take nearly $1 billion over the next 10 years to have the IT systems operational is a good place to start. Perhaps the fact that a number of the polytechnics were losing numbers during Te Pukenga is another good place. Perhaps the fact that the polytech sector under Te Pukenga did not get back to pre-COVID numbers, with internationals sitting at only a third when the universities and the schools and the PTEs were getting back. Perhaps the fact that it was overriding local decisions and stopping things like being able to offer free fees to students, which you would think a left-wing Party would be pleased about for students. Perhaps it was taking away the innovation, all the successful things that local regions did is a good reason. So a lot of reasons why Te Pukenga was not the answer. And I've reflected on how this happened. I've really reflected on it. And look, I feel quite sorry for the members that are here today having to try and defend this. They have been thrown under a bus by their leader, because remember, this mess was set up by the Right Honourable Chris Hipkins, and it followed on the mess in the police and in health and in COVID. And what do? They make him the leader. So this is a mess that was created by the leader of the Labour Party and these poor members. And look, they are genuine. Shannon Halbert, very genuine. He spent some time with the Wananga, wonderful institution, TWOA, my good friends in there. He spent some time there. He understands the issue in the sector. He's been thrown under a bus trying to defend the indefensible. I will not try and defend Te Pukenga. It was form over function. It was uninformed. And 2 years after it had been formed, saying, oops, we've forgotten the due diligence to tell you another $1 billion was needed. I don't think I need to answer much more on that one.
Just before I take the next call, I've been watching. I heard the previous chair ask people to now get more specific. That was 2 general debate speeches I've just heard. We are now going to be asking members to speak to relatively narrow parts of part 1, please. Francisco Hernandez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to get very specific around clauses 13, 14, 15, 16, elaborating more on clauses 13, 15, and 16, given the guidance that the previous chair has already issued around the idea of Te Tiriti and Māori representation in the legislation. So I will focus most of my contribution on 13, 15, and 16, but I'll touch lightly on 14 just for completion's sake. Now, my wider questioning around this is informed by why are there differences in the legislation that governs that will govern ITPs versus the legislation that governs university councils. So, for example, I'll turn to clause 13, which is around membership of councils. Now, if you look at the parent clause 276, members of councils for the university sector, it has institutions which can be between 8 to 12 council members, but for the Poitec sector, which is governed by Section 317, Poitecs can have between 6 to 8 members. So my question is, how did that number of 6 to 8 get arrived to, as opposed to the membership of university councils, which can be 8 to 12? We know that some universities will be smaller than some polytechnics, so I don't think it's necessarily to do with size. Why has the specific number of 6 to 8 for Poitec councils been arrived at? There are other provisions for membership of councils that are referred to in this legislation. So, for example, in the section around appointment of university of council members in 278 of the parent legislation, it talks about wider sets of requirements including election processes. This is now clause 15. But if you look at the clause for the Polytech sector, which is 320, it doesn't make references to potential elected members. So my thinking around that, is the minister considering that, is the minister thinking that this legislation precludes the appointment of members that are elected via appointment process? Because I don't see this in the legislation versus the legislation that exists with the university councils. Is it expected that they're all appointed, or is there going to be provision for potential elected members who are then appointed to this council, to the ITP councils, because as I've said, it's not currently in the legislation, but it is in the legislation that governs the university council. So, I mean, obviously, I do have some amendment papers that will directly put elected members from students and staff representatives on the student council, but my thinking is that as currently drafted, this legislation doesn't actually have any provision for an elected member who is then later appointed to the council, as is provided for in the parent legislation, which only governs university councils at this stage because the polytech sector is excluded from it. And then my final one is on clause 16, which is section 281 on the university council legislation, which is to do with the duties of councils. And this is something that I do want to give the minister some kudos over, in that the section to do with polytechs, the additional duties of polytechs, makes references to the need for polytechs to collaborate with other polytechnics to use resources effectively to avoid duplicating efforts. So it is potentially moving the polytech sector to a more collaborative model. So if that's good enough for the polytech sector, why not require it also for the university sector to work in a collaborative manner? Because I do think it's important that the wider tertiary education sector works in a more collaborative fashion. So why are there differences in the legislation from clause 13, 14, 15, and 16 between university councils and polytechnic councils? And particularly interested in the answer around 15, around making provisions, around the ITPs making provisions to potentially have elected members on there.
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank the member for those sensible questions, and I'm happy to traverse those. So the numbers, these have changed over time. 20 odd years ago there was 20 on a council. They were pretty unruly and hard to get things done. Polytechnics, I think, are known for being collaborative, nimble, agile. I don't think university councils have ever been accused of being that, but it's important for the polytechnics that they're smaller, they need to be able to react quickly to industry, and so giving some choice again to the local communities to decide whether, rather than a minister deciding what size they should be, anywhere between 6 and 8 is generally accepted as a good working board or council that will be able to represent the community but also be agile and nimble. In terms of the members other than those appointed by the minister, so of course if it's 7 or 8, 4 will be appointed by the minister, if it's 6, 3 will be, and the other members are to come from the community, and the council will make a decision how that will occur. And so in the past they have formed statutes and they've been different for each institution, and I would expect again they will be different, and so they won't exclude any of the representation that you've said from staff or from students or from iwi, that their statute can determine that. So again, it's giving choice to the local polytechnic to do what is right for their local community. So it's not spout out, but it certainly doesn't exclude that from happening. And sorry, in terms of collaboration, absolutely. Look, the polytech sector has been collaborative for many years. It's something of a myth that they haven't been. The first nursing degrees were brought about through collaboration. The Te Pāti Māori member previously talked about NMIT and SIT. They worked really closely together on a number of things in the postgraduate area. The member Shannon Halbert was from TWOA. He knows that for 20 years TWOA worked with a number of polytechnics. The polytech sector is collaborative by necessity. There is no point in trying to reinvent the wheel on a number of things, but you're quite right, we want to encourage it further, hence the reference to it here, hence the federation, which allows that collaboration to have better service, better academic delivery, better financial outcomes for those that are struggling. So absolutely I agree that collaboration is necessary in the sector. This legislation facilitates facilitates that. Thank you for that very sensible question.
Kamala Belich.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Pleasure to take the opportunity to take a call on this committee stage, my first opportunity. I just wanted to ask, and I won't take a full call, a very specific question around new clause 7, which looks at amending the Main Education and Training Act 2020 in relation to the clause on academic freedom. And my question is this. First of all, I think, and it would be good to hear the Minister's response to this, academic freedom at polytechnics as well as other tertiary institutions is of utmost importance, and it's one of the founding principles within the education system. In the Education and Training Act as it is currently, with the provisions in relation to Te Pukenga which this Act removes, there is a change from including a specific clause relating to polytechnics, which in the current Act is, I understand, section 318, to in this, with the Minister's Bill, which is in part 1 on page 9, new clause 7, essentially puts academic freedom back into the primary academic freedom clause that applies to wānanga and universities as well. So my understanding, this is a genuine question, the current situation is we have an academic freedom clause in the existing Act which applies to wānanga and universities, and we have an academic freedom clause which is specifically spelling out the academic freedom requirements in relation to Te Pukenga, which currently includes polytechnics. The Minister has decided or is proposing under this bill to take away that specific clause and put it back into the main clause. And my question is, why is that? Is that simply simplicity of legislation? That would be a sufficient answer if that was the reason. And just to get some guarantees from her that there is nothing lost in relation to the relatively extensive academic freedom provisions in section 318, which are currently in the Act, because as I'm sure the Minister will say in her response, this is of utmost importance. And also to note, Mr. Chair, that we are only on clause 7 of about 41 pages of part 1. So there's a number of very specific provisions which have not been discussed at all in this committee stage that cover the substantive part of this bill. So I would just note that what my contribution and my question is one of those, but there are a number of sections that have not been traversed at all in relation to that bill. So I look forward to hearing the Minister's answer.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll answer very briefly. It absolutely ensures that polytechnics are included. So includes universities, polytechnics and wānanga with regards to academic freedom. So no issue at all.
The Honourable Phil Twyford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to talk about sections 314 and 315, the establishment and characteristics of polytechnics. And I have a couple of specific questions about those provisions, but I just want to note that the establishment of the polytechnics really, this is the heart of the entire enterprise. And I just want to quote Civil Contractors New Zealand, the peak body of one of the most important industries in New Zealand, an industry that is heavily reliant on a pipeline of trained workers to make that industry hum. They said to the Select Committee that in their submission that at no point was anyone able to articulate the problem that the reforms solved, and they said they were very worried about the future funding of vocational education. I quote, "Throughout the process, no one has been able to articulate the problem that they're trying to solve. We've consistently heard that the structures arising from Labour's reforms were not delivering for industry and that the cost of the structure was unreasonable and prohibitive. In our view, neither statement is correct," unquote. They further went on to say, "We're deeply concerned the further reduction in funding proposed places our ability to train our future workforce at risk." Now, in relation to sections 13 and 14 and the creation of the new architecture, it does rely on, and I think the Minister, I would really like to hear the Minister's response to that very important peak body and what they said to the Select Committee about the creation of the new Polytechs. And I'm keen to know, in relation to 314, why there's nothing in there in the description of the characteristics about the role that Polytechs play in alleviating skills and workforce shortages. What I would have thought that was absolutely core to these institutions. And in addition, and other colleagues have mentioned this already this morning in relation to other provisions, the very important role that Polytechs play in providing pastoral care for the students enrolled in their institutions. Is that not a core characteristic of these institutions? Keen to hear from the Minister.
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr Chair. I'm not sure what part of the legislation the member is reading, because I would have thought that 314B, characteristics of polytechnics, they are predominantly involved in providing continuing education that responds to the education and training needs of local communities and industries in their regions, was exactly doing that. Addressing any skill shortages that are in the regions, addressing the needs of the industries in their community. So I'm very confident that we've got that covered. In regard to the comments from the civil contractors, the CE Alan Pollard of the civil contractors, Alan has his own inimitable way of expressing himself, and I enjoy conversations with him. I enjoy conversations with the wider civil contractors industry, which I keep in contact with regularly, and I'm delighted that Alan is one of the EAG members of one of our ISBs. So it's wonderful to have him there supporting this whole new development as it goes forward.
Shannon Halbert.
Thank you, Mr Chair. In line with your direction, I am going to speak to Section 315, particularly Clause 3A, in regards to the region or the regional region served by the Polytech. And as we know, the minute this legislation establishes a structure that still aims to serve learners across Aotearoa, New Zealand. When I think about the impact of this legislation on regional communities, I am highly concerned. And one of my colleagues said to me when she received the library pack, she says, it's quite easy to do a speech on this in opposition because there's so many negative stories that have come out as a result. But beneath the politics of this, Mr Chair, is about learners. And so when we make a commitment, and I acknowledge that one of the three goals of this is around access to learning for people that live in regional communities, and I just don't see how this legislation achieves that. And so start at North Tech. North Tech's going to become half of what it was. Half of what it was. It will see courses cancelled in the further out parts of Northland, Kaikohe, Kaitaia, marae-based programs. Those will have to be peeled back. It's going to see the closure of its main campus in Whangarei as an example, to relocate to somewhere else. Is that not correct, Minister? You're looking perplexed. I hope that you'll be able to clarify that in your response too. I look to EIT, where while it's a okay setup for people living in Hawke's Bay, I'm really concerned about Tairāwhiti in Gisborne, about programs offered in Wairoa. What happens to those regional communities? We've seen Tokaroa, Taupo impacted by this legislation. We're seeing, while in Tokaroa, the Minister thinks she may have saved a campus, as there's still significant job losses, and as a result, over consecutive years, we will see less learning opportunities in smaller communities like Tokaroa that have already been heavily impacted. Taupo is the same. We're seeing a campus closure there. We see Welltech, Whitireia, UCOL, where we're seeing a downsizing of courses and programs available to learners in our most regional and remote communities. That is inequitable, Minister. You've made a commitment to achieving better outcomes than Te Pukenga did for those learners. What better outcome is there than sheer access to learning opportunities? Online learning is not the only vehicle that people engage in learning opportunities. And you haven't offered the specificity that we need to assure us and give us confidence that this legislation is going to retain access for regional learners, actually going to have putia money available to invest in those learners, because you are committed to a 1:18 student ratio. Tell me how that is achievable in those remote communities, in the number of programs that we need. That doesn't stack up. We're missing the financial information still. So that is the answers that I'm looking for from you. How does this legislation better serve learners in our most regional communities?
Honourable Minister.
Thank you. Thank you. Great question, Shannon Halbert, because it is at the heart of what we are doing here. Centralisation, where all the decisions had to be made by a central entity that was supposed to be in Hamilton but was actually in Auckland. Allowing those sort of decisions to be made locally is incredibly important. I do want to address the specific question that you asked around North Tech, because we have got that wonderful group of community leaders there that are working very hard to try and get a much better, newer, fit-for-purpose campus for North Tech, and I am very happy to be working with them, and if the community can get on board and get that to happen, what a wonderful thing it will be for North Tech. So happy to be working with them on that. And again, it's the community driving a solution for their local community. Look, I absolutely accept what the member says about the importance of those small rural regions. I was over in Wairoa after the floods there and met with a lovely young man who had trained through EIT to be a builder, and the work that he was doing with his extended whānau there, and I really want to acknowledge how wonderful builders are in a situation like that, and how important it is to have that kind of provision, which was exactly what drove me around the strategic funding, the strategically important funding, to put that in place while I can work on adjusting the funding system, which I have inherited. Had to make some changes because the unified funding system was so disastrous that had been put in, but trying to get recognition of exactly that. And the member's completely correct. That is why a place like Telford, you can't put 18 students who are trying to learn how to shear a sheep or drive a four-wheeler in front of one tutor. You must have flexibility around those ratios, and that's exactly why I have sought that additional funding to hold on to those strategically important geographic regions, those particularly those remote rural regions, but also those strategically important industry areas, and nowhere more important than in the far north, where we've got the highest number of NEETs anywhere in the country, and that is exactly why North Tech will be receiving the largest amount of any of the polytechnics, 3.648 million a year over the next 2 years, to ensure that they can keep that important provision going, because I know how much we must ensure access in those regions. That is the pathway to employment for those young people.
Sam Uffendale.
I move that debate on this question now close.
Now, I'm aware that there is a lot in this bill, but we are still getting bogged down in relatively relatively local parts of that. So I'm looking for new material. Francisco Hernandez.
We'll get new material. My question is around a part of section 319, which concerns the chairperson and appointments of deputy chair people that hasn't been addressed yet. But prior to that, I also have a question to the numbers that the Minister has been saying throughout this debate. She said that North Tech has gotten around 3.68 million, and earlier EIT got 1.55 million. If the Minister could provide a specific breakdown of how much each Poitec is getting, that would help assure members, I think. So I would like a breakdown of how much ITP is getting from the strategic fund. And I'm only bringing this because the Minister is engaging with the questions around the funding issue. But I'll return to 319 around the appointment of the chairperson and deputy chairperson. Now, at the moment, as written, the legislation says that the Minister may, by written notice to the member concerned, dismiss the chairperson or deputy person from offices as chairperson or deputy chairperson. It may also appoint the chairperson and deputy chairperson from among the members of the Polytechnic. My question is 3191. Why, instead of using the word why instead of using the word must, it uses the word may? Is there any thinking that the Minister might potentially appoint a chairperson and deputy chairperson who's not currently among the membership of the ITP in concern? So just curious why it's the word may that's being used as a point to must. I also have what I think is a constructive amendment paper, which is to do with which will require the Minister to consult with the members of the ITP in question before appointing a chairperson and deputy chairperson. My theory is if this person, if the deputy chairperson and deputy chair people are the ones who are supposed to be leading the council, I just think it makes perfect sense for the Minister to consult the members of the ITP concerned on who their chairperson and deputy chairperson might be, because the members might know something about the person that the chairperson that the Minister might want to appoint as chairperson and deputy chairperson that she doesn't necessarily know. And again, with the appointment, with the potential to dismiss the chairperson or deputy chairperson, I think it's also important to consult and require the majority approval of the ITP in question before essentially removing a chairperson, deputy chairperson, because I do think there has been concerns that have been articulated by submitters during the submission process that the Minister has a lot of powers within this legislation to appoint council members. You'll see in the earlier section 317 that she will be appointing up to half of the current Polytech Council. So in the current setup, the Minister has a lot of power to set the composition of the council, and I acknowledge that's taken from the council, from the legislation that established university councils. I think a potential check and balance to that power would be, and that is in my amendment paper, to require the consultation and the consent of the majority of the council before appointing a chairperson, deputy chairperson, and before removing it. So my question to the Minister is, will the Minister consider that the amendment paper that I proposed requiring consultation and the consent of the membership of the ITP board before appointing and removing chairpersons and deputy chairpersons? And why is it not currently in the legislation to require consultation with the ITP council that she will be appointing half of anyway, so she'll have quite she'll have quite strong influence on the council members appointed anyway. So why is it not currently in the legislation? And will she consider my proposed change to change that so that there can be more responsiveness to local communities and also some local input on the minister's decision? Thank you.
The Honourable Minister.
I thank the member again for his very specific and sensible question. Look, it is described as may, but it is effectively mandatory because the chair will be appointed, so it's not about bringing someone in from outside. I have read the member's amendment paper. I don't think that it's necessary. I believe that in terms of removing a chair, there's quite a lot of consultation and work that has to go on. It's not something that a minister would do without really significant engagement with that council. In terms of, at the very start, the member asked for the information that I've been quoting from. Absolutely, it's publicly available. I'm happy for you to get a copy of it. So thank you for that.
The Honourable Phil Twyford.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. I have questions for the Minister around 315, establishment of polytechnics, and I'm curious as to why the provisions in the bill don't have more to say specifically about the imperative to take advice or consult on the needs of a particular region. So currently, the Minister must seek advice from NZQA on quality assurance matters, consult other persons or bodies that the Minister thinks fit. It's very open-ended. Take into account the characteristics of a polytech. And crucially, D, be satisfied that the establishment of the polytech is in the interests of the tertiary education system and the nation as a whole. But what about the particular region? If I think about West Auckland, it's a part of the city with very particular demographic characteristics. We have a young, large working class population. We have real transport challenges that create barriers for our young people to get access to jobs and education and training opportunities. And I'm sure if you looked at any particular region, there would be particular characteristics. So why doesn't 315 require that? And I'm interested in what advice the Minister had about whether or not the interests of a region where polytechs could be established are important for consideration in that provision. Why the interests of those regions not actually something that the Minister is required to take into account when she issues one of these orders, and why there are not, for example, in paragraph B, the requirement to consult, for example, local institutions, regional industry groups, local community organisations, iwi and hapu. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Chair. I'll be very brief because I think that, as the member has pointed out, 3152B covers that very open. Consult other persons or bodies that the Minister thinks fit. It opens the door to consult with all those entities that the member brought forward.
Kamala Belich.
Thank you, Mr Chair. I just wanted to follow up. I've got a new point that I want to ask the Minister about, and it's about new clause 20 in relation to Crown observers, and also the operative clause, which is 341J, which will be the new section of the bill once it becomes an act. And so that's the section I want to focus on, but I want to draw a parallel with the question I asked around academic freedom. So in that question, which the Minister did address, but I feel that perhaps it would be good to get some advice on some other aspects of that question. In that particular situation, we had academic freedom, a removal of a specific clause in relation to polytechnics, and polytechnics being put in together with wānanga and universities, and I agree that, and the Minister's response is correct, I'm not contested that academic freedom applies to all of those. So that meant that that specific provision in relation to Polytechnics specifically was put into the general provision. And so I wanted to know why that was. And I think she said it applies, but I'd be grateful if she could, if there was a further elucidation on that. The question I want to ask in this contribution, though, is in relation to Crown observers. We have the opposite legislative drafting happening here as I can see it. So essentially, in the main Education and Training Act, the current Section 341J does not apply, but instead there is, that's not the correct section. The main 289 subsection 7 doesn't apply, but 341J does apply. So if we go to 341J, which is in Part 1, which is what we're considering, this provides for the Minister to be able to appoint a Crown observer. So this is specific to a polytechnic. So this is the opposite situation where we do have a specific polytechnic clause which has been put in, which may differ, and that's a question for the Minister, may differ in relation to how Crown observers may interact with other types of institutions. So that's the first question, is why is a specific polytechnic clause being put into this new bill, and what is the purpose of that, and just noting that it's different for that academic freedom section. The other question I have is in relation specifically to 341J subclause 3. When a Crown, I mean, obviously this is not a situation that is desirable to appoint a Crown observer, but we have to acknowledge, and especially with the disestablishment of Te Pukenga, this is a real possibility in some instances when we do have these independent institutions, that to be prudent in some situations where there are issues with how an institution is being managed, it may need a Crown observer to be put in place. So the Minister has put forward a specific process, and that does involve consulting the council of that polytechnic and essentially getting their feedback on that. Now, I just wanted to know from the Minister in relation to this section, the word consulted, is that, I mean, essentially this part says that when the Crown observer is to be considered by the Minister must tell the Polytechnic that that she, in this instance, is considering implementing a Crown observer, and get their feedback on that, get their comment on that proposal. Now, I imagine, and it would be good to get your feedback on this, Minister, that it may be that the council says, no, Minister, we don't need a Crown observer, we're totally fine. And so I just wanted to get some feedback on, is that, surely there will be instances where the Minister has a firm view and there is nothing that the council can say to dissuade you that there needs to be some outside intervention into this council. And so I just want to ask if consult is the correct word. I imagine this will be something that you would want to act quickly upon if it did occur, and I think we need to be future looking with this, because this will be in place for all of these polytechnics. So just a few questions on the legislative drafting and then the operation of that specific clause.
Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. Very good to be discussing this, because of course this mirrors the legislation for Te Pukenga, and so I'm a great believer of nothing is all good and all bad, and so I've been prepared to look at what was put in place for Te Pukenga by that member's party when it was in government, and so I've seen this and thought that's wonderful to have early intervention, to have different stages of intervention, because the worst thing possible is to allow a polytechnic to keep going and getting itself more and more in trouble and getting racking up huge amounts of debt. So I looked at what had been put in place by the members' party when it was in government for Te Pukenga, thought it looked sensible, thought I'll pick that up. It looks a good thing to put in here to ensure that there's various stages of intervention to stop a polytechnic getting itself into major strife. Thank you.
Shannon Halbert.
Thank you, Mr Chair. I am continuing on section 315 and now want to move to point 4. Before recommending that the Polytech is specified as an anchor polytechnic, the Minister must be satisfied that the Polytechnic is able to perform the role of an anchor polytechnic specified And I've spoken very clearly around my concerns of insufficient information when it comes to the finances of setting up the structure that the legislation proposes. And while the Minister, and appreciate Minister that you are being very responsive to the questions, that's really helpful in this committee stage, so thank you. But you are talking about some of the costs of Te Pukenga. You're talking about costs as an example of funding via the strategic fund to particular polytechnics. What I would like to hear from you is what advice that you have received around the share costs, and I acknowledge that Treasury has advised you against this. They've highlighted the risks financially for this particular structure. That was some time ago, so I'd be really keen to hear at the centre of that, what advice are you receiving around the actual costs and funding that you need to establish this particular model for the 10 plus other polytechnics, just polytechnics alone in this instance? What advice have you received?
The Honourable Minister.
I thank the member again for some very sensible questions around this, particularly around the anchor polytechnics, the federation. Federation model isn't new. It's used in a number of countries. It was actually suggested to the previous government when they set Te Pukenga up that the federation model would be a good model. A number of submissions were made on that, and I wonder if the Right Honourable Chris Hipkins sometimes reflects and wished he'd gone down that track. But however, I think that the questions that have been asked are very fair in terms of what are we doing to ensure that each individual polytechnic is in the best financial position it can be to be set up. And so that was work that of course happened over that 18 months of getting that sustainable pathway for each individual polytechnic. So that has been done by polytechnic, not by sector, but by polytechnic, and that is why we're doing it in tranches. So the 10 that have got that pathway, and they know that, they have that, the senior management team have that, the EAG appointments have that, and they are working through that. In terms of the 4 that are left, they are sitting in Te Pukenga as we work through that process. We're also working through the recapitalisation process because, as I mentioned, when the member for Tairi, Ingrid Leary, talked about the Otago situation, there are some that have big debt, and I don't want them set up with big debt. That is setting them up to fail. So we're working through that recapitalisation process, and the member will be aware that some have got some pretty significant issues there, and it's important that we address those issues, get that debt out of the road so that they start from a strong, stable set of finances when they start. The other matter was around the strategic funding. That has been put in there to recognise that we do have to do some work, and I'm sure the member himself will know from the time he was in the sector, we do need to do some work to be more nuanced around those areas where you can't have the 1 to 18, which is kind of the golden metric of whether a course is financially viable or not. Treasury's advice was interesting over the period of time, and we got that advice at different periods of time, and over the last 18 months things have changed as the institutions have got stronger and more viable. So I just want to really assure the member, because I know he's genuine in asking these questions, I want to assure the member that we have no intention of setting polytechnics up that are not in the best possible financial state they can be, to give them an absolute chance to be successful going forward.
Mr. Francisco Hernandez.
Mr. Chair, we nearly got our 2 names merged together there, but I'll turn to some specific questions around some specific clauses. I have one around section 328, the duties of a federation committee. I'd be interested on a definition of around that language around 321B around act in the interest of federation polytechnics provided that action is not detrimental to the interests of an anchor polytechnic. Who'll be the one deciding, who'll judge whether an action is detrimental to the interests of an anchor polytechnic? And is there a specific definition around what detrimental might mean in this context? Because, I think it'd be good to get a clarification of that, because that is really essential to, what the idea of federation polytechnics and anchor polytechnics and them not being able to harm each other. And then I'll turn to section 337 around the role of anchor polytechnic. Now I'm curious around 337.2 around the conditions around an anchor polytechnic declining to provide or ceasing to provide relevant services. Is this essentially around, does the anchor polytechnic basically have free rein to activate these clauses if they want to? Is there no mechanism whereby their decision to cease providing these services if they want to can be challenged, as long as the provisions under A, B, and C can be met? And if there are provisions to challenge that, who will be the one judging that challenge? Is it the minister? Is it the TEC, or is it the dispute resolution mechanism mentioned under 330 earlier in the Act? I'll turn now to my 339, which is around the designation and removal of federation polytechnics. There is a requirement under here to consult the polytechnic before either adding or removing their designations for removal. But and I do have an amendment paper tabled here, I was wondering whether the minister might consider stronger language, so rather than just consulting the polytechnic, which is being considered for designation or removal, to require its consent, because I do think the minister was rightfully upset about some polytechnics under the Te Pukenga model being forcibly amalgamated into that entity against the will of the communities and the local regions and the students they served. So my amendment paper will prevent that from happening under this model, because essentially if the minister doesn't strengthen the language around consultation and upgrade it to requiring the consent of the polytechnic, I think she's essentially leaving the door open for Te Pukenga to be re-established, which she said that she doesn't want to do. Like, there's a future government could just fold the polytechnics again into the federation and then rename the federation into Te Pukenga if they wanted to. So will the minister consider upgrading the requirement from consultation to requiring the consent of the communities? Because that way, she does, this government does have some safeguards against Te Pukenga being re-established again, although I do note that opposition members, including the leader of the opposition, has already committed to not re-establishing it again, but it does create a legislative safeguard to prevent that. And so those are my questions that I've asked so far. Again, it's around 328, 337, and around 339. Looking keenly forward to answers from the minister.
Thank you, and thank you to the member again for asking such sensible and specific questions. It's a pleasure to answer them. In terms of the Act in the interests of Federation Polytechnics, provided that action is not detrimental to the interests of an anchor polytechnic, and indeed 337.2 I came from the good work that the Select Committee did in ensuring that the legislation was fit for purpose. And when I looked at what examples there might be, I could think of, for example, if there were polytechnics that wanted the anchor polytechnic to develop a particular course, but it was going to cost cost the Anchor Polytechnic a lot of money and divert them from other development, that this might come into play. The essence, though, of the Federation, and I think the member can look at it, this is not a head office telling individual institutions what they can do. This is a collective. This is a federation, a committee from each representatives from each federation member. So it is a collective making decisions in the best interest, ensuring that the Anchor Polytechnic doesn't suffer from the work they might have to do, ensuring also that the Federation Polytechnics, the services that are provided to them are not cost plus but are only cost recovery. So this is putting the fabric in place to ensure that that collaborative work can occur, whether it's a very small polytechnic sitting out in a regional area or the large open polytechnic, that there is equity of decision making. So it's to ensure that each Federation Polytech is well looked after, but equally the Anchor Polytechnic is equally looked after. In terms of the consent rather than just consult, can I just say it's really, really difficult when a polytechnic gets into that downward spiral, either academically or financially. Sometimes they don't see the trees, they don't see the wood for the trees, and I think that the whole nature of the Federation is not punitive. It's not to punish polytechnics, it's to support them. And so I think probably the members underestimating the level of engagement that would go on before you might get to that stage to ensure that the polytechnic understands the areas that they have a deficit in, whether it's academic or financial, and to ensure they understand what can be done to help support them. So I think there has been a little bit of this talk, and probably the member for Taieri kind of continued that talk. It's not punitive. The Federation is not punitive. It is there to support.
Kushla Tangieri Manuel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Pursuant to that answer, I'm going to ask the Minister a sensible question about particularly UCOL in Wairarapa. So, speaking of the regions served by the Polytech, the Anchor Polytech, how will the Minister ensure local autonomy and multi-region providers like UCOL, Wairarapa? What protections will be in place to prevent populous areas or those perhaps better off economically in dominating? And what will the funding structures be, and how are they different from Te Pukenga? Kia ora.
Very sensible.
Shannon Halbert.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was excited for a moment we might be talking about tertiary education in North Shore, but we're still pretty short. Thank you, Minister. I want to continue on section 324, purposes of the Federation. This is, in fact, the part that I call the Emperor Without Clothing, because there's a lot of detail that we haven't been able to explore throughout the Select Committee process. So bear with me on that. But I particularly come back to point B in there, 324B, that are consistent with the Polytechnic's characteristics. And so my colleague, Kushla Tangieri Manuel, has spoken of one example. The other live example that we've fluffed over today is Otago Polytechnic and the awkward arrangement that has been set up there. And I guess if we just break down that into form and function of who's doing what. So as described by you today, the Otago Polytechnic problem that we're trying to solve is that they are significantly in debt. I'm not aware that there's any academic or educational delivery issues, but if there are, I encourage you to discuss those. And so if that is the problem we're trying to solve in that example, under the Federation model, who in that setup is assisting Otago Polytechnic to resolve the financial issue at hand? In the cluster that you've established as the Anchor Polytechnic of the Open Polytechnic, who are the educational delivery partner. That is their core business. They are not the financial partner, as I understand it. So who, therefore, in that live example, is offering the fiscal advice to assist Otago Polytechnic to get to a place of sustainability as required by this legislation?
The Honourable Minister.
I'll very briefly answer. Thank the member for asking me about UCOL and the dispersed provision they have there with Masterton and particularly Wanganui, and I'm delighted to tell the member that I've been having ongoing discussions. The very capable MP from that area has been advocating very strongly for particularly Wanganui, and I met yesterday with local iwi, and they are very excited about being engaged in that sort of hub concept in Wanganui. So I think we've got some really strong buy-in from the local communities there, and we're looking at a bespoke situation for them to ensure that they have plenty of say in what happens there, that they can gather together, and the wānanga is also operating there. So I think that we may see an exciting new model there, again driven by the enthusiasm of local leaders there. So it's wonderful to see that, because I absolutely get what the member talks about if you have one big dominating another, and we've seen that a bit when we've seen takeovers by other polytechnics. In terms of the financial situation, for example, for Otago Polytechnic, their council, of course, will be responsible for their financial improvement plan. They have an improvement plan there. They are working towards that. We are looking at what we can do with their debt, so I'm very confident that we can assist them there. But the Federation is there to enable those shared services where it might provide some financial relief. The greatest financial relief that the Federation can provide, of course, is the fact that the Open Polytechnic has 160 odd programs online that can be available to the other institutions, that they won't have to do the development of it. They can have a combined academic board if they want to. They can have that combined development that can be shared then across all the institutions. So I think it provides some real opportunities for the Federation Polytechnics to be able to save some of those costs.
Grant McCallum.
I move that debate on this question now close.
The question is that debate on this question now close. All those in favour say aye. A point of order. Please do not dispute my decision to close. I've been watching carefully. I've seen through. I'm aware that there is other questions. However, I've made a decision to close, and well, there will be a debate and there'll be a decision. But if you challenge my decision to close, please don't.
That was going to be.
Right. Now, I move that debate. Sorry, the question is that debate on this question now closed. All those in favour say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. A party vote is called for. Please conduct a party vote.
New Zealand National.
49 votes in favour.
New Zealand Labour.
34 votes opposed.
Green Party of Aotearoa, New Zealand.
15 votes opposed.
ACT New Zealand.
11 votes in favour.
Yes, over here.
New Zealand First.
8 votes in favour.
Te Pāti Māori.
E ono ngā whoti e whakahe.
The ayes are 68, the noes are 55. The question is agreed. Just before we start voting on the amendments, I'll just vacate the chair.
Sorry, I'm spreading out over here.
The question is that the Minister's amendment to Part 1 set out on amendment paper number 381 be agreed to. All those in favour say aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. The party vote has been called for. The clerk will conduct the party vote.
New Zealand National.
49 votes in favour.
New Zealand Labour.
34 votes opposed.
Green Party of Aotearoa, New Zealand.
15 votes opposed.
Act New Zealand.
11 votes in favour.
New Zealand First.
8 votes in favour.
Te Pāti Māori.
E ono ngā pōti whakahe.
The ayes are 68, the noes are 55. The question is agreed to. The question is that Francisco Hernandez amendment deleting clause 4 set out on amendment paper number 389 be agreed to. All those in favour say aye. To the contrary, no. The noes have it. A party vote has been called for. The clerk will conduct the party vote.
New Zealand New Zealand National.
49 votes opposed.
New Zealand Labour.
34 votes in favour.
Good morning. Green Party of Aotearoa, New Zealand.
15 votes in favour.
Act New Zealand.
11 votes opposed.
New Zealand First.
8 votes opposed.
Te Pāti Māori.
6 in favour.
The ayes are 55, the noes are 68. The question is not agreed to. Francisco Hernandez amendments to Part 1 set out on amendment paper number 388 are out of order as being inconsistent with the previous decision of the committee. The question is that Francisco Hernandez amendments to Part 1 set out on amendment paper number 386 be agreed to. All those in favour say aye. Yes. To the contrary, no. The noes have it. Party vote has been called for. The clerk will conduct the party vote.
New Zealand National.
49 votes opposed.
New Zealand Labour.
34 votes in favour.
Green Party of Aotearoa, New Zealand.
Te kaumārima ngā pōti e whakai ana.
Act New Zealand.
11 votes opposed.
New Zealand First.
8 votes opposed.
Te Pāti Māori.
E ono ngā pōti whakahe.
The ayes are 58, the noes are 68. The ayes are 55, the noes are 68. The question is not agreed to. The question is that Shannon Halbert's table amendment to clause 22, new section 314 to replace paragraph A be agreed to. All those in favour say aye. To the contrary, no. The noes have it. Party vote has been called for. The clerk will conduct a party vote.
New Zealand National.
49 votes opposed.
New Zealand Labour.
34 votes in favour.
Green Party of Aotearoa, New Zealand.
Te kaumārima ngā pōti e tino tautoko ana.
Act New Zealand.
11 votes opposed.
New Zealand First.
8 votes opposed.
Te Pāti Māori.
E ono ngā pōti whakahe.
The ayes are 58, the noes are the ayes are 55, the noes are 68. The question is not agreed to. The question is that Shannon Halbert's table amendment to clause 22, new section 314 to replace paragraph B be agreed to. All those in favour say aye. To the contrary, no. The noes have it. Party vote has been called for. The clerk will conduct a party vote.
New Zealand National.
49 votes opposed.
New Zealand Labour.
34 votes in favour.
Green Party of Aotearoa, New Zealand.
Te kaumārima ngā pōti e whakai ana.
Act New Zealand.
11 votes opposed.
New Zealand First.
8 votes opposed.
Te Pāti Māori.
E ono ngā pōti e whakai ana.
Whakaara wate.
The The ayes are 55, the noes are 68. The question is not agreed to. The question is that Shannon Halbert's tabled amendment to clause 22, new section 314 to replace paragraph D be agreed to. All those in favour say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. No. The noes have it. Ayes have it. Party vote. Party vote has been called for. The clerk will conduct the party vote.
New Zealand National.
49 votes opposed.
New Zealand Labour.
34 votes in favour.
Green Party of Aotearoa, New Zealand.
Te kaumārima ngā pōti e tino tautoko ana.
Act New Zealand.
11 votes opposed.
New Zealand First.
8 votes opposed.
Te Pāti Māori.
6 in favour.
The ayes are 55, the noes are 68. The question is not agreed to. The question is that Shannon Halbert's tabled amendment to clause 22, new section 315, paragraphs 2 to replace paragraph B be agreed to. All those in favour say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. No. The noes have it. A party vote has been called for. The clerk will conduct a party vote.
New Zealand National.
49 votes opposed.
New Zealand Labour.
34 votes in favour.
Green Party of Aotearoa, New Zealand.
Te kaumārima ngā pōti e tino tautoko ana.
Act New Zealand.
11 votes opposed.
New Zealand First.
8 votes opposed.
Te Pāti Māori.
E ono ngā pōti, tino whakai.
The ayes are 55, the noes are 68. The question is not agreed to. The question is that Francisco Hernandez's amendment to clause 22, replacing new section 315, brackets 2, brackets B, set out on amendment paper number 390 be agreed to. All those in favour say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. No. The noes have it.
Ayes have it. Party vote.
A party vote has been called for. The clerk will conduct a party vote.
New Zealand National.
49 votes opposed.
New Zealand Labour.
34 votes in favour.
Green Party of Aotearoa, New Zealand.
E tino tautoko ana. Te kaumārima ngā pōti.
Act New Zealand.
11 votes opposed.
New Zealand First.
8 votes opposed.
Te Pāti Māori.
E ono ngā pōti e whakai ana.
The ayes are 55, the noes are 68. The question is not agreed to. The question is that Shannon Halbert's tabled amendment to clause 22, new section 315, brackets 2 to replace paragraph D be agreed to. All those in favour say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. No. The noes have it.
Ayes have it.
A party vote has been called for. The clerk will conduct the party vote.
New Zealand National.
49 votes opposed.
New Zealand Labour.
34 votes in favour.
Green Party of Aotearoa, New Zealand.
E tautoko ana.
Act New Zealand.
11 votes opposed.
New Zealand First.
8 votes opposed.
Te Pāti Māori.
6 in favour.
The ayes are 55, the noes are 68. The question is not agreed to. The question is that Francisco Hernandez's amendment to clause 22, new sections 316 and 317, set out on amendment paper number 391 be agreed to. All those in favour say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. No. The noes have it.
Ayes have it.
Party vote has been called for. The clerk will conduct the party vote.
New Zealand National.
49 votes opposed.
New Zealand Labour.
34 votes in favour.
Green Party of Aotearoa, New Zealand.
15 votes e whakai ana.
Act New Zealand.
11 votes opposed.
New Zealand First.
8 votes opposed.
Te Pāti Māori.
6 votes in favour.
The ayes are 55, the noes are 68. The question is not agreed to. The question is that Francisco Hernandez amendment to clause 22, new section 317 set out on amendment paper number 382 be agreed to. All those in favour say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. No. The noes have it. Party vote has been called for. The clerk will conduct a party vote.
New Zealand National.
49 votes opposed.
New Zealand Labour.
34 votes in favour.
Green Party of Aotearoa, New Zealand.
Te kaumārima ngā pōti e tautoko ana.
Act New Zealand.
11 votes opposed.
New Zealand First.
8 votes opposed.
Te Pāti Māori.
6 votes in favour.
The ayes are 55, the noes are 68. The question is not agreed to. The question is that Shannon Halbert's tabled amendment to clause 22, new section 318 to replace subsection 1 be agreed to. All those in favour say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. No. The noes have it. Party vote has been called for. The clerk will conduct the party vote.
New Zealand National.
49 votes opposed.
New Zealand Labour.
34 votes in favour.
Green Party of Aotearoa, New Zealand.
Te kaumārima ngā pōti e whakai ana.
Act New Zealand.
11 votes opposed.
New Zealand First.
8 votes opposed.
Te Pāti Māori.
6 votes in favour.
The ayes are 55, the noes are 68. The question is not agreed to. The question is that Francisco Hernandez amendment to clause 22, new section 318 brackets 2 set out on amendment paper number 383 be agreed to. All those in favour say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. No. The noes have it. Party vote has been called for. The clerk will conduct the party vote.
New Zealand National.
E whatikau ma iwa ngā pōti whakahe.
Oh, tēnā koe.
New Zealand Labour.
34 votes in favour.
Green Party of Aotearoa, New Zealand.
Te kaumārima ngā pōti e whakai ana.
Act New Zealand.
11 votes opposed.
New Zealand First.
8 votes opposed.
Te Pāti Māori.
E ono ngā pōti e whakai.
The ayes are 55, the noes are 68. The question is not agreed to. The question is that Francisco Hernandez amendments to clause 22, new section 319 set out on amendment paper number 392 be agreed to. All those in favour say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. No. The noes have it. Party vote has been called for. The clerk will conduct the party vote.
New Zealand National.
49 votes opposed.
New Zealand Labour.
34 votes in favour.
Green Party of Aotearoa, New Zealand.
Te kaumārima ngā pōti e tautoko ana.
Act New Zealand.
11 votes opposed.
New Zealand First.
8 votes opposed.
Te Pāti Māori.
E ono ngā pōti e whakai.
The ayes are 55, the noes are 68. The question is not agreed to. Shannon Halbert's tabled amendment to clause 22, new section 321 to replace paragraph C is out of order as not offering a serious alternative form of words. The question is that Shannon Halbert's tabled amendment to clause 22, new section 322 brackets 1 to replace paragraph B be agreed to. All those in favour say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. No. The noes have it. Party vote has been called for. The clerk will conduct the party vote.
New Zealand National.
49 votes opposed.
Yes, please.
New Zealand Labour.
34 votes in favour.
Green Party of Aotearoa, New Zealand.
15 votes in favour.
Act New Zealand.
11 votes opposed.
New Zealand First.
8 votes opposed.
Te Pāti Māori.
6 votes in favour.
The ayes are 55, the noes are 68. The question is not agreed to. The question is that Shannon Halbert's tabled amendment to clause 22, new section 324 to replace paragraph A be agreed to. All those in favour say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. The noes have it. Party vote has been called for. The clerk will conduct a party vote.
New Zealand National.
49 votes opposed.
New Zealand Labour.
34 votes in favour.
Green Party of Aotearoa, New Zealand.
Te kaumārima ngā pōti e tautoko ana.
Action New Zealand.
11 votes opposed.
New Zealand First.
8 votes opposed.
Te Pāti Māori.
E ono ngā pōti e whakaia.
The ayes are 55, the noes are 68. The question is not agreed to. The question is that Shannon Halbert's tabled amendment to clause 22, new section 324 brackets B, to replace subparagraph Roman numeral I, be agreed to. All those in favour say aye. To the contrary, no. The noes have it. Party vote has been called for. The clerk will conduct a party vote.
New Zealand National.
49 votes opposed.
New Zealand Labour.
34 votes in favour.
Green Party of Aotearoa, New Zealand.
Te kaumārima ngā pōti e tautoko ana.
Action New Zealand.
11 votes opposed.
New Zealand First.
8 votes opposed.
Te Pāti Māori.
E ono ngā pōti whakaai.
The ayes are 55, the noes are 68. The question is not agreed to. The question is that Francisco Hernandez amendment to clause 22, new section 326 brackets 1 set out on amendment paper number 393 be agreed to. All those in favour say aye. To the contrary, no. The noes have it. Party vote has been called for. The clerk will conduct a party vote.
New Zealand National.
49 votes opposed.
New Zealand Labour.
34 votes in favour.
Green Party of Aotearoa, New Zealand.
15 votes in favour.
Action New Zealand.
11 votes opposed.
New Zealand First.
8 votes opposed.
Te Pāti Māori.
E ono ngā pōti whakaai.
The ayes are 55, the noes are 68. The question is not agreed to. The question is that Shannon Halbert's tabled amendment to clause 22, new section 337 brackets 2 to replace paragraph C be agreed to. All those in favour say aye. To the contrary, no. The noes have it. Party vote has been called for. The clerk will conduct the party vote.
New Zealand National.
49 votes opposed.
New Zealand Labour.
34 votes in favour.
Green Party of Aotearoa, New Zealand.
15 votes in favour.
Action New Zealand.
11 votes opposed.
New Zealand First.
8 votes opposed.
Te Pāti Māori.
6 in favour.
The ayes are 55, the noes are 68. The question is not agreed to. The question is that Francisco Hernandez amendment to clause 22, new section 339 set out on amendment paper number 385 be agreed to. All those in favour say aye. To the contrary, no. The noes have it. Party vote has been called for. The clerk will conduct a party vote.
New Zealand National.
49 votes opposed.
New Zealand Labour.
34 votes in favour.
Green Party of Aotearoa, New Zealand.
Te kaumārima ngā pōti e whakaia ana.
Action New Zealand.
11 votes opposed.
New Zealand First.
8 votes opposed.
Te Pāti Māori.
E ono ngā pau tautoko.
The ayes are 55, the noes are 68. The question is not agreed to. The question is that Francisco Hernandez amendment to clause 22, new section 339 set out on amendment paper number 394 be agreed to. All those in favour say aye. To the contrary, no. The noes have it. Party vote has been called for. The clerk will conduct the party vote.
New Zealand National.
49 votes opposed.
New Zealand Labour.
34 votes in favour.
Green Party of Aotearoa, New Zealand.
Te kaumārima ngā pōti e tautoko ana.
Action New Zealand.
11 votes opposed.
New Zealand First.
8 votes opposed.
Te Pāti Māori.
E ono ngā pōti whakaai.
The ayes are 55, the noes are 68. The question is not agreed to. The question is that Shannon Halbert's tabled amendment to clause 22 new section 339 brackets 2 to replace paragraph D be agreed to. All those in favour say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. No. The noes have it. Party vote has been called for. The clerk will conduct a party vote.
New Zealand National.
49 votes opposed.
New Zealand Labour.
Toru te kaumā whā ngā pōti whakaai.
Green Party of Aotearoa, New Zealand.
15 votes in favour.
Action New Zealand.
11 votes opposed.
New Zealand First.
8 votes opposed.
Te Pāti Māori.
6 in favour.
The ayes are 55, the noes are 68. The question is not agreed to. The question is that Shannon Halbert's tabled amendment to clause 22 new section 339 bracket 6 to replace paragraph A be agreed to. All those in favour say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. No. The noes have it. Party vote has been called for. The clerk will conduct a party vote.
New Zealand National.
49 votes opposed.
New Zealand Labour.
Toru te kaumā whā ngā pōti whakaai.
Green Party of Aotearoa, New Zealand.
15 votes in favour.
Action New Zealand.
11 votes opposed.
New Zealand First.
8 votes opposed.
Te Pāti Māori.
6 in favour.
The ayes are 55, the noes are 68. The question is not agreed to. The question is that Shannon Halbert's tabled amendment to clause 22 new section 339 bracket 6 bracket C to replace paragraph brackets Roman numeral 2 be agreed to. All those in favour say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. No. The noes have it. Party vote has been called for. The clerk will conduct a party vote.
New Zealand National.
49 votes opposed.
New Zealand Labour.
Toru te kaumā whā ngā pōti whakaai.
Green Party of Aotearoa, New Zealand.
15 votes in favour.
Action New Zealand.
11 votes opposed.
New Zealand First.
8 votes opposed.
Te Pāti Māori.
6 in favour.
The ayes are 55, the noes are 68. The question is not agreed to. The question is that Shannon Halbert's tabled amendment to clause 22 new section 340 to replace subsection brackets 2 be agreed to. All those in favour say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. No. The noes have it. Party vote has been called for. The clerk will conduct a party vote.
New Zealand National.
49 votes opposed.
New Zealand Labour.
Toru te kaumā whā ngā pōti whakaai.
Green Party of Aotearoa, New Zealand.
Te kaumari mā ngā pōti e tautoko ana.
Action New Zealand.
11 votes opposed.
New Zealand First.
8 votes opposed.
Te Pāti Māori.
E ono ngā pōti whakaai.
The ayes are 55, the noes are 68. The question is not agreed to. The question is that Shannon Halbert's tabled amendment to clause 22 new section 341B to replace subsection brackets 4 be agreed to. All those in favour say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. No. The noes have it. Party vote has been called for. The clerk will conduct a party vote.
New Zealand National.
49 votes opposed.
New Zealand Labour.
34 votes in favour.
Green Party of Aotearoa, New Zealand.
15 votes in favour.
Action New Zealand.
11 votes opposed.
New Zealand First.
8 votes opposed.
Te Pāti Māori.
6 in favour.
The ayes are 55, the noes are 68. The question is not agreed to. The question is that Francisco Hernandez's amendment to clause 22 new section 341H set out on amendment paper number 396 be agreed to. All those in favour say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. No. The noes have it. Party vote has been called for. The clerk will conduct a party vote.
New Zealand National.
49 votes opposed.
New Zealand Labour.
Toru Tekoma whā ngā pōti whakaai.
Green Party of Aotearoa, New Zealand.
Te kaumārima ngā pōti e whakai ana.
Action New Zealand.
11 votes opposed.
New Zealand First.
8 votes opposed.
Te Pāti Māori.
6 in favour.
The ayes are 55, the noes are 68. The question is not agreed to. The question is that Shannon Halbert's tabled amendment to clause 22 new section 341M brackets 1 to replace paragraphs A and B be agreed to. All those in favour say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. No. The noes have it. Party vote has been called for. The clerk will conduct a party vote.
New Zealand National.
49 votes opposed.
New Zealand Labour.
34 votes in favour.
Green Party of Aotearoa, New Zealand.
15 votes in favour.
Action New Zealand.
11 votes opposed.
New Zealand First.
8 votes opposed.
Te Pāti Māori.
6 in favour.
The ayes are 55, the noes are 68. The question is not agreed to. Before I put the next question, a bit more enthusiasm in the ayes and noes, so we can get some clarity on the voice votes. I can let the House know we're on to the last page, so we're nearly there, folks. The question is that Francisco Hernandez's amendment to clause 22, new section 341P, set out on amendment paper number 397, be agreed to. All those in favour say aye. Aye. There you go. To the contrary, no. No. The noes have it. Party vote has been called for. The party vote.
New Zealand National.
49 votes opposed.
New Zealand Labour.
34 votes in favour.
Green Party of Aotearoa, New Zealand.
Te kaumārima ngā pōti e tino tautoko ana.
Action New Zealand.
11 votes opposed.
New Zealand First.
8 votes opposed.
Te Pāti Māori.
E ono ngā waka eke noa.
Just for the Pāti Māori, that's 6 votes in favour.
Aye.
Yes, thought so. The ayes are 55, the noes are 68. The question is not agreed to. The question is that Shannon Halbert's tabled amendment to clause 22, new section 341P brackets 3 to replace paragraph A be agreed to. All those in favour say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. No. The noes have it. Party vote has been called for. The clerk will conduct a party vote.
New Zealand National.
49 votes opposed.
New Zealand Labour.
34 votes in favour.
Green Party of Aotearoa, New Zealand.
Te kaumārima ngā pōti e tino tautoko ana.
Action New Zealand.
11 votes opposed.
New Zealand First.
8 votes opposed.
Te Pāti Māori.
E ono ngā pōti tautoko.
The ayes are 55, the noes are 68. The question is not agreed to. The question is that Francisco Hernandez's amendment to clause 23, new section 362, set out on amendment paper number 384 be agreed to. All those in favour say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. No. The noes have it. Party vote has been called for. The clerk will conduct a party vote.
New Zealand National.
49 votes opposed.
New Zealand Labour.
34 votes in favour.
Green Party of Aotearoa, New Zealand.
15 votes of tautoko.
Action New Zealand.
11 votes opposed.
New Zealand First.
8 votes opposed.
Te Pāti Māori.
E ono ngā pōti whakai.
The ayes are 55, the noes are 68. The question is not agreed to. The question is that Francisco Hernandez amendment to clause 23, new section 364 brackets A brackets Roman numeral 2, set out on amendment paper number 398 be agreed to. All those in favour say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. No. The noes have it. Party vote has been called for. The clerk will conduct a party vote.
New Zealand National.
49 votes opposed.
New Zealand Labour.
Toru te kaumā whā ngā pōti whakaai.
Green Party of Aotearoa, New Zealand.
Te kaumārima ngā pōti e tautoko ana.
Act New Zealand.
11 votes opposed.
New Zealand First.
8 votes opposed.
Te Pāti Māori.
6 in favour.
The ayes are 55, the noes are 68. The question is not agreed to. The question is that Francisco Hernandez amendment to clause 23, new section 365 set out on amendment paper number 399 be agreed to. All those in favour say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. No. The noes have it. Party vote has been called for. The clerk will conduct the party vote.
New Zealand National.
49 votes opposed.
New Zealand Labour.
34 votes in favour.
Green Party of Aotearoa, New Zealand.
15 votes in favour.
Act New Zealand.
11 votes opposed.
New Zealand First.
8 votes opposed.
Te Pāti Māori.
6 in favour.
The ayes are 55, the noes are 68. The question is not agreed to. The question is that Francisco Hernandez amendment to clause 23, new section 370, set out on amendment paper number 395 be agreed to. All those in favour say aye. To the contrary, no. No. The noes have it. Party vote has been called for. The clerk will conduct the party vote.
New Zealand National.
49 votes opposed.
New Zealand Labour.
Toru te kaumā whā ngā pōti whakaai.
Green Party of Aotearoa, New Zealand.
15 votes in favour.
Act New Zealand.
11 votes opposed.
New Zealand First.
8 votes opposed.
Te Pāti Māori.
6 in favour.
The ayes are 55, the noes are 68. The question is not agreed to. The question is that Part 1, as amended, stand part. All those in favour say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. No. The ayes have it. Party vote has been called for. The clerk will conduct a party vote.
New Zealand National.
49 votes in favour.
New Zealand Labour.
Toru te kaumā whā ngā pōti whakahe.
Green Party of Aotearoa, New Zealand.
15 votes opposed.
Act New Zealand.
11 votes in favour.
New Zealand First.
8 votes in favour.
Te Pāti Māori.
6 opposed.
Okay, the ayes are 68, the noes are 55. The question is agreed to. We now come to Part 2. Part 2, this is the debate. Point of order, Honourable Phil Twyford.
Mr Chairman, I want to speak to Standing Order 137.3. We felt that the closure motion taken by your predecessor was not reasonable. We thought it was premature, very premature, for a bill of this substance and a lot of really meaty provisions in Part 1. 2 hours is not excessive. In fact, it's modest for a committee of the whole House. There were, I don't believe there was excessive repetition, and in fact there weren't warnings that we were going to be cut off. The opposition members have been trying to work step by step through the substance of Part 1, and we got through probably barely half of it. There is a really significant section, subpart 6, which covers the industry skills boards and apprenticeship training opportunities. We haven't had a chance to speak to that. We were, I think, really part way through the provisions around the Federation of Polytechnics, which is a big and significant and complex area. So to say we are unhappy about what we think was a premature closure is an understatement. And I think that it has done a disservice to the quality of this committee stage. And so, Mr Chairman, I invite your advice about what we can do about that, what avenues there are, to ensure that we get a chance, I think, to properly debate and scrutinise subpart 6.
Yes, well, thank you. Speaking to the point of order, Susan May.
We have spent at least 2.5 hours on this part, and I'd just like to acknowledge that the previous chair made it quite clear he'd considered carefully what had gone before, and he didn't want his decision challenged.
Okay. Probably the other point, the issue before us as well was just finished the vote, so that is which closes off part 1. But I will seek some advice from the clerks because you do hear the concern here. I just want to acknowledge the concern expressed by the Honourable Phil Twyford as well, but just also to acknowledge that the chairperson before me did make the call. The closure motion was taken, it was voted on, and then we've just gone through 40 minutes worth of voting on the parts as well. So in terms of my ability to provide avenues at this particular point in time, they are not there. We need to be able to move forward in terms of the process that we're in front of us right now. On point of order.
Thanks, Mr Chairman. I would like to seek the leave of the House for subpart 6 to be allocated a period of time for debate.
I put leave to the leave is sought from to the House for that purpose. Leave has not been granted. Okay, moving on to point of order.
Just following on from that, if there'd be any grace or ability to, and I know we're moving on to part 2, but to have a little bit of leeway, if anything does pop in, just have a bit of leeway from you in terms of that debate and discussion.
Yeah, I mean, if it's attached to part 2, then that is entirely possible, but you have to draw the link between part 1 and part 2 in order for that to happen, because my understanding is part 2 is about consequential amendments. So if there are consequential amendments flowing in from part 1 to part 2, then make the point in your calls, and then we'll see if that's appropriate or not. The question is that part 2 stand part. Sorry. We now come to part 2. This is the debate on clauses 40 to 52, amendments to other legislation and revocation and Schedule 6. The question is that part 2 stand part. Any takers? Shannon Halbert.
Thank you, Mr Chair. It is challenging not to have had the opportunity to discuss at length a significant part of the proposed legislation, which is industry skills boards. I appreciate that in depth. We did discuss polytechnics, federations, but the other significant component is industry skills boards. So I'm going to do my best to include this in part 2 in amendments to other legislation in the section of CW 55BAA, Federation of Polytechnics Committee and Industry Skills Boards. And if I'll start there, because the Minister will have, this was a significant promise from the Minister to industry that this legislation would enable them to have more leadership around the future development of workforce, around vocational training in there, and it's an area where many industry providers are dissatisfied with where this legislation has landed. Only 11% of submitters support this legislation. 11%. And so when it comes to looking at the particular parts of industry skills boards, in there is the disestablishment of the workforce development councils. And, you know, openly the Minister has been critical of Te Pukenga overall. I don't think she has been as critical of workforce development councils, because she will know that that was had a lot of improvement to including the development and design of qualifications, both at a micro and macro level, that there was a lot of work that was done in that particular piece to ensure that training providers, polytechs, were able to deliver relevant qualifications, and there was a heap of work to be able to do in that particular space to change the way that Kiwis learnt within the vocational sector. Mr. Chair, so in that is the proposal to disestablish workforce development councils. I accept that, but we have disestablished again versus tweak and just transition. And the Minister here in this legislation has chosen to establish industry skills boards. She's offered up half the funding in that to industry skills boards, and she's added on more work for them to be able to do with essentially less money to assist them in doing that. The industry skills board she's increased by 2 additional boards in comparison to Workforce Development Council. I'm really keen to understand from her the rationale for that, because more boards also means more expenses, which she isn't able to fund in that particular instance. How did she come up with that particular list of industry skills boards in there? And what is the allocation of funding to ensure that she is able to support those to be sustainable moving forward? Her timelines have ISBs to be established the 1st of January 2026. That is not on track, Mr. Chair, to be set up. In addition to that, the Minister of Education, with a passing conversation, as I can see with the Minister of Vocational Education, has committed her curriculum development to be connected with the ISBs. That's new information to them, and there hasn't been consultation with them, or there's a lack of consultation even with the Minister for Vocational Education. So I'll start there, because I would like an explanation about how she's come up with these decisions for ISBs, the transition to include 2 additional ISBs, the funding allocated to that, which is only half of what it is. How does she expect an organisation to have the same function of the previous one to be able to deliver the outcomes that she needs?
Shannon Halbert.
Thank you. I see that the Minister is not willing to answer that particular question. Sorry? I was pondering, she wants some more. She's pretty capable, so I know she has answers to those questions. But the industry skills boards also includes the allocation of apprenticeships, and you know, ISBs are responsible for the future of our apprenticeship scheme in this country. Under her watch, there has been thousands less apprentices enrolling in programs. There's thousands less graduating from the programs. We've explored this previously, but she isn't explaining how this piece of legislation is going to increase the number of apprentices that we are growing in this country. The government talks big about their investment in infrastructure, but we do have thousands of people going overseas. That's not my issue. The issue for the sector here and this legislation is, will it produce the number of apprentices that the Minister needs to meet the government's expectations around their economic commitments and growing the relevant workforce that they particularly need to. In that as well, there's the issue where WBLs, as an example, she has shifted under ISBs, which is fine. Maito, as an example, came back and submitted and said she's actually introduced a two-part process for them, which they don't need. This is about enabling industry leaders, and so I'd be very keen for her to be able to explain that piece of work.
I was wondering if the member could help us with pointing us to which clauses and sections that would help the House.
Which clause? Yeah. So, sorry. In my first contribution, I did acknowledge that, but in my second, I didn't. So I am referring to Part 2, CW 55BAA, Federation of Polytechnics Committee and Industry Skills Boards. Mr. Chair, point 1, an amount of income derived from the Federation in that particular kapai. Thank you. Because we know that I go back to the problem that we're trying to solve is the financial viability. And where providers feel let down, industry leaders feel let down, is that the Minister promised more industry leadership, but that's not what this legislation does. I would like her to explain that. Explain that in response to comments from Alan Pollard. Why did she not deliver on that promise? And is there a window of opportunity for her to fulfil that promise with a particular amendment in the legislation that is before us? Still keen to hear from her around the funding aspect, and then that will set up a bunch of new questions that will come within that section.
Ricardo Mendes-March.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. So I'm referring to Schedule 6, which I understand would fit within Part 2, as it... yeah, okay, good. I'm seeing notes. Great, thank you. So on Schedule 6, I'm looking at page 101 here, and this is the line that reads Plumbers, Gas Fitters and Drain Layers Act 2006, and the replacement of Section 157 to the Minister may require output agreement to include matters relating to board's relationship with Industry Skill Board or Workforce Development Council. I wanted to ask the Minister if she would elucidate what her intentions are for that relationship and what that relationship looks like, whether she would have seen that there's a need for student voice within it as part of that relationship. And then I also wanted to understand, particularly since the Select Committee briefings that we would have received in hearings with the Minister, how much engagement has the Minister had in relationship to this, but I guess this would touch to broader parts of the bill, with the Minister of Social Development in relationship to the goals within the Industry Skill Board and Workforce Development Council, and whether the goals that she is pursuing within this bill, and particularly with the changes to the Plumbers, Gas Fitters and Drain Layers Act 2006, also align with the intended goals of other policy outcomes that the Minister for Social Development is pursuing. And so this is, once again, just in relationship to Schedule 6, Part 1, and I particularly wanted to pick up this area just because I understand there's been a bit of debate on the nature of the Industry Skill Board and Workforce Development Council, which is specifically noted in the replacement, the replacing of the Section 157. And so this is specifically on line between 10 and 25. And so if the Minister would be able to, in relationship to Plumbers, Gas Fitters and Drain Layers, elucidate what that relationship would look like, what communications, if any, has she had with the Minister of Social Development since the Select Committee stage, and whether she would see the need for voices within the workforce rather than just industry as part of that board and those respective areas noted in Schedule 6. Thank you.
Honourable Penny Simmons.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and delighted to be talking about the industry skills boards, the incredible important work that our industry training does, our apprentices, our trainees, our wonderful tradies across the country. Incredibly valuable, incredibly important and wonderful to have industry back in the driver's seat with our industry skills boards. In terms of the plumbers, gas fitters and drain layers, the ISB for construction also has specialist trades in it. It's named with that in it because I understand the importance of the specialist trades within that broader picture of construction trades. Really important to give them that visibility. I know the plumbers, gas fitters and drain layers have been really instrumental in driving that recognition of the specialist trades. Really important that our ISBs set up the vehicle, the structure that enables the voices of those industries so that it isn't a domination of the biggest part or the biggest industries within the ISBs, that they hear from all of those industries that are encompassed by an ISB. So I thank the member for his question, and yes, certainly the ISBs are being asked to ensure they have structures in place that enable them to hear the voices of all the trades and all the industries within their ISB.
Shannon Halbert.
Chair, thank you, Mr. Chair. Coming back to CW55BAA and the discussion around WDCs and ISBs. Questions for the Minister is WDCs have been tapering operations for some time now, and this is relative to the transition. So how is the Minister going to get from current state, half of what it was, to new state? So that question is, WDCs have been tapering operations for some time now, but are now actively making staff redundant to accommodate consultation requirements and notice periods. Where does the mandate come from to do this before the legislation is passed? To what extent did the Minister start this work before this legislation was established? Because we have had concerns that the recent parts of the legislative process have moved really quickly. It was only 2 weeks ago that the Education and Workforce Select Committee reported back. Lo and behold, last week, second reading, committee, the whole House today, but very little amendments, which tells me, despite a large amount of submissions, that the Minister hasn't really taken those on board too much. So I really want to drill into getting from A to B, that transition that she's put in place.
Just checking that WDC is Workforce Development? Okay.
Workforce Development Councils. So for anyone in the chamber and at home, the Minister has decided to disestablish Workforce Development Councils, which were highly successful in the last government's reforms. And, you know, lots of opportunity there, but this Minister under this legislation has chosen to disestablish that successful model and re-establish a model with half the funding and more entities to manage, which just doesn't make sense in any respect. But second question for the Minister is, how will ISBs be enabled to deliver on their statutory functions from day one, when in some instances only 2 or 3 roles from the Workforce Development Councils to their corresponding ISBs have been identified for transfer via an EOI process? So the runway, this is about the runway. The Minister wants it in place by the 1st of January. I'm keen to understand from her, in some of those WDCs to ISBs, how does she see that happening with the time frame available? Is she expecting a gap between that to ensure that the continuation of work is there and that nothing's lost? And also, third question there is, does she acknowledge that essentially some of the ISBs are having to start again in terms of recruitment, and that there will be significant impacts and time lapses in the provision of services to industry partners and to providers Minister, I'd really appreciate if you are able to answer these particular 3 questions, because they really talk to the success of this structure, proposed structure at this stage. But, you know, you've been pretty firm on the structure from the start, which has been, they say you've let them down. What do you say?
Mr. Chair, I'm just struggling a little bit with the member's questions. He quoted new section CW55BAA, which is about the Income Tax Act 2007 and amendments there. And I'm just trying to see what his question was regarding the Income Tax Act.
Shannon Hubbard.
I asked, which were in relation to that particular point. CW55BA, Industry Skills Boards. Is she unwilling to answer the 3 questions about transition from WDCs to Industry Skills Boards?
I think it was more around the relationship between 2 specific clauses.
Well, the relationship, Mr. Chair, is that we're talking about a transition of a structure which has fiscal implications no matter which way that you look at it. So those questions are relevant because we've got a funding issue, we've got a staffing issue, and we've got a transition issue. No, this isn't my funding issue. Suzanne Redmayne from Rangitike. Suze, this isn't my funding issue. This is a funding issue that the Minister has brought to the House under this new legislation. This legislation proposes full reform of a sector without any financial information available to us to give us confidence that this is even going to exist in 2 years. How do we make decisions in this House without the right fiscal information to give us confidence that ISPs can set themselves up, that they can transition, and that learners that are at the centre of this piece of work are still going to have access to opportunity and learning provision that they were guaranteed under the last structure? This Minister has no money. She's put up a proposal that looks good politically, but she hasn't shown us the fiscals on how she is going to achieve that. That is not acceptable. Then show us what your sustainability plan is. I accept from Suze Redmayne, who says there is no magic money tree. I'm not proposing that there is a magic money tree. But what I am proposing is that any educational legislation that comes through this House should offer equity of access to learning opportunities no matter where you live. That includes regional communities who are cut off under this legislation. So back to the Minister. Are you willing to answer the questions relative to industry skills boards that you have proposed under this legislation? We can be tricky about which clause that we're talking about, kapai. If we want to play that game, we will. But as educationalists, as people who know the sector, you've put up a model that says that it's better than the last one. I'm still yet to see where. I'm still yet to see where your money is on this commitment without putting more cuts in place and less provision available to those in the regions.
Before I take the next call, just to reflect on, yes, this is a place of robust debate and a bit of back and forth is fine. But if members want to have a further discussion, please take it outside. There are and just to note that as well, because it does disrupt the order of the House. And just also to make the point, it would be helpful for the House if we focus on relevant sections and provisions to focus this debate as well. Ricardo Mendes much.
The Support Workers Pay Equity Settlement Act 2017 is laid out in Schedule 6. This is page 102 and lines between 10 and about 20. In relationship to your guidance, Mr. Chair, about us making sure we refer to part 2, but being able to tie it to part 1. A lot of the changes in Schedule 6, which replaces the language of workforce development councils with industry skill boards or workforce development council as established or continued for the time being under, do relate to part 1 because it's like singling out basically specific pieces of legislation that affect specific areas of our workforce, and in this case, for example, we've got support workers. One of the things that I asked in my last contributions that I didn't get engagement or elucidation with is how this bill's intent and the funding that goes alongside with it. And for example, like if we look at the support workers that are a critical part of our workforce and will now also be captured in this new industry skills board, whether she has sought engagement or assurances with the Minister for Social Development in relationship to the intended goals around getting young people to go into education should there not be into employment, and whether the mechanisms that she's setting, for example, for support workers under Schedule 6 will allow young people to enter into those professions, but also whether she's confident that the new industry skill board, with the funding that it has and with the ability to also explore, for example, new qualifications, is fit for purpose to ensure that we have the range of qualifications that are necessary, whether it's in, support workers or, for example, I note above it, it's the Real Estate Agents Act 2008, to adequately and ensure that our vocational education institutions are supported via the Industry Skills Board to look at quality assurance or new qualifications as may be needed to ensure that for those 18 and 19-year-olds who may not be able to find employment and who are being told by this government that education is something they should pursue, that the range of qualifications they can access genuinely meets the needs of our communities and the economy. So I'm tying this, as I said, to Schedule 6 because the previous chair, Madam Chair, indicated to us that should we want to tie something in the debate to Part 1, that we just needed to reference something that was in Part 2. So I just wanted to make sure that that is clear. And so something that I didn't get engagement on.
I'm not sure that's open slather for
No, but I'm just wanting to make sure that I can make the links between Part 2 and Part 1 as provided guidance by the previous chair. And one thing I didn't get engagement on in my previous line of questioning on Part 2 was just, since the Select Committee stage, what engagement, if any, has she had with the Minister of Social Development in relationship to the changes that will be made specifically to specific pieces of legislation that are subsequently amended, that affect very specific industry bodies and workforce groups, and whether the policy intent in this bill, particularly in the subsequent changes in Part 2, are in alignment with the perceived goals that the Minister for Social Development has. Thank you.
Tom Rutherford.
I move the debate on this question now close.
Look, I've only been in the chair a few minutes, so I just want to just get a feel for the kinds of topics that are being covered. Takuta Ferris.
Tēnā koe, Madam Chair. Tēnā koe te minita. I've been listening intently, hoping that the wānanga sector might come up because they've got a lot of questions of their own. And I know that they're an interesting part of the education landscape. And
can I ask the member to refer to the clause or sheet?
Yeah, sure. It's CW55BAA, the Federation of Polytechnics Committee and the Industry Skills Board. And more importantly, how the iwi, the hapu, or the wānanga voice gets there. So I'll cut straight to the chase. These come from the whare wānanga. So how will the changes to the Principal Act, this part of it included, ensure that hapu and iwi be given support and time to establish a mechanism to capture what their labour market skills are? And given the tensions around the earlier parts of the bill and the robustness or otherwise of what that Māori representation might look like, it's probably just that the wānangas have these views. or have these questions. So it's an opportunity for the Minister to respond to the wānanga sector. Additionally, how will changes to the Principal Act, this part included, reflect and respond equitably to the unique challenges faced by Māori across the regions? Yeah, which is, the regions is a key part because it's a part of the wānanga catchment, I suppose, takes in more of the regions than the other main central ones. So it's a fair enough question. Additionally, in the bill, can the Minister provide examples of how changes to the Primary Act, and again, representation at the Confederation and the board levels, the skills board levels is critical, how it reflects an understanding of the challenges of rural and remote learning delivered by wānanga Māori. These things, as we've shared earlier, Minister, you and I are well versed in these things, and what I neglected to tell you earlier is that the 11 years before I went to the ITPs in Wānangas, I was at Te Wānanga Orokawa. So, the last part I have for you is, what feedback and advice has she received from her officials through engagements with the wānanga Māori sector on the bill? Were there any concerns raised by wānanga Māori in relation to representation of mana whenua of Māori communities, of the wānanga sector, okay, in the WDCs, in the Federation or the ISP? Tēnā koe. Oh, before I hand over to you, Te Minita, just a clarification that my whanaunga who's running NMIT, she's a proud descendant of the iwi she chairs, Ngāti Rārua, and Ngāti Kuia, and Ngāti Rangitāne. So, kia ora, Olivia.
Thank you for that, and I apologise for that.
The Honourable Penny Sands.
Look, the wānanga are not involved in this legislation, this legislative change, but I do want to take a quick moment to celebrate our three wonderful wānanga, TWOA, Aotearoa and Rakawa. It's a good opportunity to give a shout out to them, and for those of you who don't know, the wonderful Rongo Weteri is back in the country, the founder of TWOA, but I can assure the member that wānanga are exempt from needing any endorsement from the ISBs and capstone assessments or anything like that. So as much as I'm happy to talk about our three wonderful wānanga, it's not within the within this legislation, but thank you.
Dan Bidwell.
I move the debate on this question now close.
The question is that debate on this question now close. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. The noes have it. A party vote is called for, Madam Clerk.
New Zealand National.
49 votes in favour.
New Zealand Labour.
34 votes opposed.
Green Party of Aotearoa, New Zealand.
15 votes opposed.
Act New Zealand.
11 votes in favour.
New Zealand First.
8 votes in favour.
Te Pāti Māori.
E ono ngā pōti whakahe.
The ayes are 68, the noes are 55. The question is agreed to. The question is that the Minister's amendment to Part 2 set out on AP number 381 be agreed to. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. No. The ayes have it. Party votes called for, Madam Clerk.
New Zealand National.
49 votes in favour.
New Zealand Labour.
34 votes opposed.
Green Party of Aotearoa, New Zealand.
15 votes opposed.
Act New Zealand.
11 votes in favour.
New Zealand
8
First.
votes in favour.
Te Pāti Māori.
Exposed.
The ayes are 68, the noes are 55. The question is agreed to. The question is that Part 2, as amended, stand part. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. No. The ayes have it. A party vote's called for, Madam Clerk.
New Zealand National.
49 votes in favour.
New Zealand Labour.
34 votes opposed.
Green Party of Aotearoa, New Zealand.
15 votes opposed.
Act New Zealand.
11 votes in favour.
New Zealand First.
8 votes in favour.
Te Pāti Māori.
6 opposed.
The ayes are 68, the noes are 55. The question is agreed to. We now come to the questions on Schedule 1. The question is that the Minister's amendments to Schedule 1 set out on AP number 381 be agreed to. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. No. The noes have it. A party vote is called for, Madam Clerk.
New Zealand National.
49 votes in favour.
New Zealand Labour.
34 votes opposed.
Green Party of Aotearoa New Zealand.
15 votes opposed.
Act New Zealand.
11 votes in favour.
New Zealand First.
8 votes in favour.
Te Pāti Māori.
6 opposed.
The ayes are 68, the noes are 55. The question is agreed to. The question is that Francisco Hernandez's amendments to Schedule 1 set out on AP number 387 be agreed to. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. No. The noes have it. A party vote is called for, Madam Clerk.
Sorry.
New Zealand National.
49 votes opposed.
New Zealand Labour.
34 votes in favour.
Green Party of Aotearoa New Zealand.
15 votes in favour.
Act New Zealand.
11 votes opposed.
New Zealand
8
First.
votes opposed.
Te Pāti Māori.
6 in support.
The ayes are 55, the noes are 68. The question is not agreed to. The question is that Schedule 1 as amended stand part. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. No. The noes have it. A party vote is called for, Madam Clerk.
New Zealand National.
49 votes in favour.
New Zealand Labour.
34 votes opposed.
Green Party of Aotearoa New Zealand.
15 votes opposed.
Act New Zealand.
11 votes in favour.
New Zealand
8
First.
votes in favour.
Te Pāti Māori.
6 opposed.
The ayes are 68, the noes are 55. The question is agreed to. We come to the questions on Schedule 2. The question is that Francisco Hernandez's amendments to Schedule 2, new Schedule 11A, set out on AP 392, be agreed to. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. No. The noes have it. A party vote is called for, Madam Clerk.
New Zealand National.
49 votes opposed.
New Zealand Labour.
34 votes in favour.
Green Party of Aotearoa New Zealand.
15 votes in favour.
Act New Zealand.
11 votes opposed.
New Zealand
8
First.
votes opposed.
Te Pāti Māori.
6 in favour.
The ayes are 55, the noes are 68. The question is not agreed to. The question is that Schedule 2 stand part. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. No. The ayes have it. A party vote is called for, Madam Clerk.
New Zealand National.
49 votes in favour.
New Zealand Labour.
34 votes opposed.
Green Party of Aotearoa New Zealand.
15 votes opposed.
Act New Zealand.
11 votes in favour.
New Zealand
8
First.
votes in favour.
Te Pāti Māori.
6 opposed.
The ayes are 68, the noes are 55. The question is agreed to. We come to Schedule 3. The question is that Schedule 3 stand part. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. No. The ayes have it. The party vote is called for, Madam Clerk.
New Zealand National.
49 votes in favour.
New Zealand Labour.
34 votes opposed.
Green Party of Aotearoa New Zealand.
15 votes opposed.
Act New Zealand.
11 votes in favour.
New Zealand First.
8 votes in favour.
Te Pāti Māori.
6 opposed.
The ayes are 68, the noes are 55. The question is agreed to. We now come to Schedule 4. The question is that the Minister's amendment to Schedule 4 set out on AP number 381 be agreed to. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. No. The ayes have it. No, a party vote is called for.
New Zealand National.
49 votes in favour.
New Zealand Labour.
34 votes opposed.
Green Party of Aotearoa New Zealand.
15 votes opposed.
Act New Zealand.
11 votes in favour.
New Zealand
8
First.
votes in favour.
Te Pāti Māori.
6 opposed.
The ayes are 68, the noes are 55. The question is agreed to. The question is that Schedule 4 as amended stand part. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. No. The ayes have it. A party vote's called for. Member Clerk.
New Zealand National.
49 votes in favour.
New Zealand Labour.
34 votes opposed.
Green Party of Aotearoa, New Zealand.
15 votes opposed.
Act New Zealand.
11 votes in favour.
New Zealand
8
First.
votes in favour.
Te Pāti Māori.
6 opposed.
The ayes are 68, the noes are 55. The question is agreed to. We now come to Schedule 5. The question is that the Minister's amendments to Schedule 5 set out on AP number 381 be agreed to. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. A party vote's called for.
New Zealand National.
49 votes in favour.
New Zealand Labour.
34 votes opposed.
Green Party of Aotearoa, New Zealand.
15 votes opposed.
Act New Zealand.
11 votes in favour.
New Zealand
8
First.
votes in favour.
Te Pāti Māori.
6 votes opposed.
The ayes are 68, the noes are 55. The question is agreed to. The question is that Schedule 5, as amended, stand part. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. No. The noes have it. A party vote is called for, Madam Clerk.
New Zealand National.
49 votes in favour.
New Zealand Labour.
34 votes opposed.
Green Party of Aotearoa, New Zealand.
15 votes opposed.
Act New Zealand.
11 votes in favour.
New Zealand
8
First.
votes in favour.
Te Pāti Māori.
6 opposed.
The ayes are 68, the noes are 55. The question is agreed to. Schedule 6 now. The question is that the Minister's amendments to Schedule 6 set out on AP number 381 be agreed to. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. No. The noes have it. The party vote's called for, Madam Clerk.
New Zealand National.
49 votes in favour.
New Zealand Labour.
34 votes opposed.
Green Party of Aotearoa, New Zealand.
15 votes opposed.
Act New Zealand.
11 votes in favour.
New Zealand
8
First.
votes in favour.
Te Pāti Māori.
6 opposed.
The ayes are 68, the noes are 55. The question is agreed to. The question is that Schedule 6, as amended, stand part. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. The party vote's called for.
New Zealand National.
49 votes in favour.
New Zealand Labour.
34 votes opposed.
Green Party of Aotearoa, New Zealand.
15 votes opposed.
Act New Zealand.
11 votes in favour.
New Zealand First.
8 votes in favour.
Te Pāti Māori.
6 votes opposed.
The ayes are 68, the noes are 55. The question is agreed to. Members, we now come to clauses 1 to 3. This is the debate on Title, Commencement and Principal Act.
Madam Speaker. Madam Chair.
Honourable Phil Twyford.
Title and commencement. So one of the themes that's been well traversed over the last few hours has been really kind of a defining feature of this bill, and that is a systematic stripping out of references to the Te Treaty, and also a weakening, a removal and a dilution of commitments for the various institutions in the vocational education sector to engage with, consult with Māori organisations and institutions in the communities they represent. And we saw it in relation to Section 314D. We saw it in relation to Section 318, removing the provision that a Polytech Council should, as reasonably practical, include Māori. Section 370C, references to Te Treaty removed. And in 314 around the characteristics of Polytechs. So it's one of the pervasive features of this bill. And during the committee stage, we have persistently really quizzed the Minister and invited her to really explain, in the first instance, why the removal of references to Te Treaty, given that it's our nation's founding document. Those references convey a whole lot of things about the kind of quality, seriousness of the Crown's and public sector's engagement with mana whenua and Māori institutions and stakeholders. And I don't believe that we have had a clear explanation from the Minister about the removal of those treaty clauses. If it's just politics, if it's just a function of the ACT Party's coalition agreement, then let's hear that. Let's say it. That would be interesting to know. But if the Minister has a deeper philosophical commitment to weakening those things, then that would also be interesting to hear. There's a higher level obligation that I think we have as a country to ensure that we look after the treaty partnership, that we grow it, take it seriously. It's one of the things about New Zealand that makes this country great and distinctive. But there's a very practical reason why high quality engagement with iwi Māori should be at the heart of something like the vocational and education training system, and that is because Māori figure so prominently in statistics that show they are getting the rough end of the employment market and the education system, and we have an obligation to take that seriously and to fix that. So, in light of all that, I would want to invite the House to support Shannon Halbert's amendment paper that would replace vocational education and training system with dilute Māori representation. And I think that would, making the title of this bill the Education and Training Dilute Māori Representation Amendment Bill much more appropriate.
Ricardo Menendez-March.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Following that contribution, and we just tabled some amendments from my colleague Francisco Hernandez, which I'd like to speak to. I did want to ask the Minister as to whether she believes that the title accurately represents the scope and intent of the legislation. I ask this because, when we're engaging with the public, if I go out into the community and I say, have you heard of the Education and Training, Vocational Education and Training System Amendment Bill, people may not know that behind it there was a broader intent of undermining our vocational education institutions. And my colleague Francisco Hernandez did put forward some suggested amendments which, in his view, do tend to better, in my view, reflect, and from my conversations with him, the sentiments both at the Select Committee process, but also in terms of the actual impact that this bill is intending to have. So, for example, one of his amendments was to change it to the Ensuring Course and Campus Closures Amendment Bill. The other one is Education and Training Committed to Ignoring Official Advice Amendment Bill, and Education and Training So Long as SIT Survives Amendment Bill. And the reason for the need to, I think, often unpack whether the titles actually represent the intent of the bill is that I do think unless you are studying law or as someone who peruses the Parliament website often to go through legislation and the sort of the minutiae of it, it can be genuinely difficult to get a sense of whether the titles reflect potential harm in our communities. So with that, I'd like to know whether the Minister would consider any of the proposed amendments by either Shannon Halbert or Francisco Hernandez to better represent the intent of the bill. If not, can I ask the Minister whether she genuinely believes that the current title as it stands adequately reflects the intended outcomes, and if not, why not? And whether she sought any advice from industry bodies and whether the title actually communicates the intention of the bill as well. So I would appreciate engagement on the issue of the title.
Honourable Penny Simmons.
Very quickly, I'll answer the two suggestions that have been put forward. Yes, I think it's a very appropriate title. I acknowledge that vocational education and training perhaps isn't explicitly known by everyone, but it is a good explanation of the bill. And I note from the member Phil Twyford his suggestion of the alternate naming, I think, is entirely inappropriate, because as I answered 5, maybe 6 times, my expectations and the references here around the expectations and engagement and representation of Māori in section 314D, 3181, 321C, 370E, and the overarching general duty to acknowledge the treaty in the main act.
Shannon Hilbert.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We've had a few hours of good discussion. You know, the education and training, vocational education and training system amendment bill. I have put forward a number of amendments that I think better reflect the nature of this legislation that the Minister has put forward. And I acknowledge her experience in this particular area, more so than many of us in here today. And with this scale of reform, that in fact it's no big feat, and that she will carry a great sense of obligation and responsibility with her and the decisions that are made as a part of this legislation. So, Minister, can I just acknowledge you today, and also your ability to respond, not all, but many of our questions, and your enthusiasm in doing that. The title and commencement, particularly the commencement date, Madam Chair, is the 1st of January. That's ambitious, as we all know, and we do want ambition in the sector. The 1st of January, and the questions that I've asked around transition today, and one example is the Workforce Development Councils through to the Industry Skills Boards. There hasn't been a good explanation of the practicality of that transition between now and the 1st of January. And I know that things take a while to set up, but what we're concerned about here is the loss of work as we exit staff and make them redundant, and the lapse of time before the disestablishment and re-establishment of a new entity. So I'd be keen to hear from the Minister, particularly around that commencement date and how she intends to do that. I have thrown a couple of cheeky title changes in there, which I hope that the Minister finds humorous too. We've had a good relationship and toing and froing in this debate, and I want that to continue. But at the heart of it is learners, and I'm still not convinced that this setup offers better access to learning, particularly for Māori, for Pacifica and ethnic communities, but specifically for those out in the most remote parts of our country and regional communities. It takes us back to a setup that we simply couldn't afford. The problem that we've been trying to solve from the outset is the financial viability piece, and there is not a successful vocational sector without financial viability, and I'm still yet to see any evidence where the Minister is able to demonstrate that what she has put up is better than what was there before. And so that amendment is, I've called Back to the Future, replace vocational education and training system with a Back to the Future. That's simply because we're going back to a model that was so expensive. It ended up in millions of dollars of debt. The government consecutive governments had to continue to bail institutions out, and that in fact is one of the primary reasons why we established Te Pukenga. And I just can't see how the Minister is able to afford that moving forward, and that it offers a sustainable future. The outcome of that, and when I meet with any institution at the moment, they say that they feel uncertain and they are experiencing the instability. And any meaningful engagement with the sector will understand the impact of consecutive years of change. But again, this These changes, the reform that the Minister puts before the House today, doesn't aid in offering any certainty or stability for the sector. It in fact offers more instability, more questions that remain unresolved, and I worry about that, Minister. We didn't have the opportunity today to talk in detail about industry skills boards and apprenticeship and that significant chunk of work. But I want to flag that as a priority and encourage the Minister to really focus on that part moving forward. So I'll end my contribution on this round there. Thank you.
Madam Chair. Thank you.
The Honourable Penny Simmons.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And look, I thank the member Shannon Halbert for his thoughtful and considered comments at the finish there. And look, I agree there is a lot of work to be done in terms of enhancing the parity of esteem for our trades, our apprenticeships, our traineeships, and that is certainly an area that I am going to be focusing on in the coming year. I also want to give an assurance to the member about my commitment to Māori, Pacifica and regional communities. They are at the heart of what I am doing here, and I would extend an invitation to the member once we are now through this to come and meet with me, and I will talk through some of the financial viability matters, particularly once we get the recapitalisation landed, and that is going to make a huge difference to those polytechnics and ISBs. I want to acknowledge the member's own commitment to the sector, and I know that has driven his questions on it. I also acknowledge the impact on staff over the years of change, and I want to take this opportunity to thank all the staff for their professionalism, and it's been their professionalism that has ensured that the students haven't suffered over this time. I can assure the member I read through all his suggested amendments. One or two were sorely tempting for me to accept around the change of title. Had a nice ring to it, some of them, but I'll stick with the existing title. Thank you very much.
I call the Honourable Priyanka Radhakrishnan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I note the Minister's comments that a couple of amendment papers were sorely tempting. I suspect it's not the one that I'm about to speak to, but I do want to speak to Shannon Halbert's amendment to replace vocational education and training system with undoing reform and taking vocational education backwards. It is probably a little bit strong, but the point that I wanted to make, Madam Chair, was just to pick up on a point that Shannon Halbert made, and I think the Minister's responded partially to it, but there's another part to it that I would like to traverse in my short contribution, Madam Chair, and that's around both the characteristics of polytechnics and also Clause 318, which is around the matters to be considered when appointing members of Polytechnics Council. While I don't have the huge wealth of experience around vocational training specifically that other members in this House who've spoken today have, I have seen some similar, a similar context within the universities as well, and that is around the place that tertiary education has when it comes to pastoral care, when it comes to being able to reflect, and I think this would probably be even more important for vocational education and training institutions, to be able to reflect the communities that they serve, and therefore to be able to reflect both the needs and aspirations of the students who go to these training centres. It does say in Clause 314, when laying out the characteristics of the polytechnics, a whole bunch of things around the diversity of continuing education that these institutions provide, the fact that they are predominantly involved in providing continuing education that responds to the specific needs of their local communities. I think that focus on local communities is important and regional need. Then goes on to say that they improve outcomes for Māori students and trainees in Māori communities in collaboration with Māori and iwi as well, and those are fine. The issue that I take, I guess, is with clause 318, which cuts out a whole number of groups, including in 3181A2, ethnic, gender and socioeconomic diversity. 3181A3 is also of concern because it takes out the need for appointing members of polytechnics councils to be reflective when it comes to diversity of ability. I would have thought at a time when we're seeing significant issues, I mean, if I were to just look at disability unemployment rates, it's gone up from 8.2% in 2022 to 14%. Now, we know that employment and employability is directly related to training, and that's largely what vocational training institutions in specific areas are trying to do to ensure that those who need to get employment in specific spaces and specific sectors have the training and education that they need to be able to do so. So removing then, working backwards, surely one would need or one would want the council or the decision-making bodies herein to be able to reflect the needs of those who are coming for training. So I don't understand removing these specific categories, but then including a clause that says the Council of a Polytechnic should, as far as is reasonably practicable, reflect the communities in the region that the Polytechnic serves. That's good, but it seems to me a step backwards, which is why I am, I guess, arguing the change in title here, because if one wants one's polytechnics to be reflective of the communities, then why take out the specifics of what that makeup should look like? But I do also want to take a quick moment to acknowledge, as Shannon Halbert has done, the care in which the Minister and the Chair is responding to questions. That's one we haven't always seen, and so I do want to acknowledge it. Thank you.
There is clearly an exhausted number of contributions here, but I will take another call from Glenn Bennett.
Kia ora, Madam Chair. The generosity is wonderful and goes a long way, and I will reciprocate with a short call. Yeah. The Minister and the Chair has acknowledged staff, and I want to thank her for that. And I am coming from New Plymouth, and obviously the Western Institute of Technology in Taranaki, WIT, has really struggled. And in terms of the title, I want to mention the amendment paper in my colleague Shannon Halbert's name, and it really is around the instability. And I was at WIT recently, and what I heard from staff, from students, was just the constant instability of change. And I, see
lovely new building, or lovely renovated building.
Yep, no, there's been some good work done. I mean, the government has had to bail them out several times over the years in terms of the financial viability. But the what came to me was the instability of just the. Yes, Te Pukenga, acknowledged that was a huge amount of change and upheaval. And now with the government doing what they're doing and the Minister doing what they're doing, it's just been the constant change, instability, review after review after review. And so, Madam Chair, I want to support my colleague's amendment, and that is on the table, replacing vocational education and training system with creating instability in vocational training. And I guess I asked the Minister, how can you've assured and thanked the staff around the country for what they do in vocational education and training, but how do we ensure that going forward there is stability, that the sector can feel confident, that it's not going to be just another set of people rolling in from Wellington or from Auckland into places like Taranaki or Southland or the West Coast, and again creating instability, creating fear in terms of that job uncertainty. We've got mortgages to pay, we've got kids to feed, we've got our communities to look after, and so I just want assurance from the Minister. I mean, please consider the amendment of Shannon Halbert. I think it is a good one. Or maybe you could think of changing it that there's actual vocational stability in education that you want to bring in with this bill. So it's frustrating for the people who are at the coalface, for people who are at the flax roots, but we need to know for them that there is stability. So in terms of the title, I support Shannon Halbert's amendment because I believe the Minister has created more instability in the sector, and I ask and plead that we can do something to ensure the staff, the students and the community can feel affirmed and stable in the future going forward of vocational education.
Deanna Kirkpatrick.
Debate on this question now closed.
The question is that debate on this question now closed. Those in favour, please say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. No. The noes have it. A party vote is called for, Madam Clerk.
New Zealand National.
49 votes in favour.
New Zealand Labour.
34 votes opposed.
Green Party of Aotearoa New Zealand.
15 votes opposed.
Act New Zealand.
11 votes in favour.
New Zealand
8 votes in favour.
Te Pāti Māori.
6 opposed.
The ayes are 68, the noes are 55. The question is agreed to. Shannon Halbert's 11 tabled amendments to Clause 1 are out of order as not being an objective description of the bill. Francisco Hernandez's 8 tabled amendments to Clause 1 are out of order as not being an objective description of the bill. The question is that Clause 1 stand part. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. No. The ayes have it.
Ayes have it.
The party vote, please, Madam Clerk.
New Zealand National.
49 votes in favour.
New Zealand Labour.
34 votes opposed.
Green Party of Aotearoa New Zealand.
15 votes opposed.
Act New Zealand.
11 votes in favour.
New Zealand
8 votes in favour.
Te Pāti Māori.
6 opposed.
The ayes are 68, the noes are 55. The question is agreed to. The question is that the Minister's amendment replacing Clause 2 set out on AP number 381 be agreed to. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. A party vote is called for, Madam Clerk.
New Zealand National.
49 votes in favour.
New Zealand Labour.
34 votes opposed.
Green Party of Aotearoa New Zealand.
15 votes opposed.
Act New Zealand.
11 votes in favour.
New Zealand
8 votes in favour.
Te Pāti Māori.
6 opposed.
The ayes are 68, the noes are 55. The question is agreed to. The question is that Clause 2 as amended stand part. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. No. The ayes have it. A party vote is called for, Madam Clerk.
New Zealand National.
49 votes in favour.
New Zealand Labour.
34 votes opposed.
Green Party of Aotearoa New Zealand.
15 votes opposed.
Act New Zealand.
11 votes in favour.
New Zealand
8 votes in favour.
Te Pāti Māori.
6 opposed.
The ayes are 68, the noes are 55. The question is agreed to. The question is that Clause 3 stand part. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. No. The noes have it. Party vote is called for.
New Zealand National.
49 votes in favour.
New Zealand Labour.
34 votes opposed.
Green Party of Aotearoa New Zealand.
15 votes opposed.
Act New Zealand.
11 votes in favour.
New Zealand
8 votes in favour.
Te Pāti Māori.
6 opposed.
The ayes are 68, the noes are 55. The question is agreed to. I will report this bill with amendment.
The House is resumed.
Madam Speaker, the committee has considered the Marine and Coastal Area Takutai Moana Customary Marine Title Amendment Bill and reports it with amendment. The committee has also considered the Education and Training, Vocational Education and Training System Amendment Bill and reports it with amendment. Madam Speaker, I move that the report be received.
The question is that the motion be agreed to. Those of that opinion will say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. The Marine and Coastal Area Takatai Moana Customary Marine Title Amendment Bill and the Education and Training Vocational Education and Training System Amendment Bill are set down for third reading next sitting day. I call on Government Order of the Day number 4.
Education and Training Amendment Bill number 2, second reading.
Honourable Erica Stanford.
Madam Chair, I present a legislative statement on the Education and Training Amendment Bill number 2.
That legislative statement is published under the authority of the House and can be found on the Parliament website. Honourable Erica Stanford.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move that the Education and Training Amendment Bill number 2 now be read a second time.
Yep, that's fine.
Okay. Madam Speaker, this government is focused on lifting student achievement and closing the equity gap in schools. We say it all of the time. This bill requires school boards to treat educational attainment as their paramount objective. It ensures initial teacher education and teacher discipline and competence processes are fit for purpose and provide clearer processes for managing industrial action within the school system. Alongside this bill has a real focus on the government's priorities to improve student attendance. We know that attending school is strongly linked to achievement, and to support this, the bill requires all schools to have attendance management plans in place that consistently responds to and addresses the diverse underlying causes of non-attendance and return students to school. It also requires universities to protect and promote academic freedom and freedom of expression within the university. There are many important proposals in this bill, and I want to thank the members of the Education and Workforce Committee for their careful consideration of their bill and their suggestions to strengthen it. And also thanks to all of those submitters who took the time to make submissions on the bill and share their thoughts and suggestions. The committee received 714 submissions and heard 42 oral submissions, and the number and type of submissions showed that New Zealanders care deeply about our education system and the outcomes it delivers for learners, families and communities. The Education and Workforce Committee have recommended some excellent changes to the bill. My colleague, Minister Seymour, will speak to the changes on the attendance management plans, and my colleague, Minister Reti, will speak to the freedom of expression changes. It's my pleasure to now speak to the other key proposals in the bill. This bill simplifies school boards' requirements so that they have a more streamlined set of expectations. The key proposal is the repeal of Section 5 of the Education and Training Act. This relates to my ability as a Minister of Education to issue a statement of national educational and learning priorities, which places unnecessary obligations on boards that are duplicated elsewhere. There are already stronger mechanisms in the Act, such as Section 127 and curriculum statements that set compulsory objectives and strategic direction for school boards. One of the proposals in this bill, Madam Speaker, which generated a lot of interest, was on the amendment to the school board objectives. This proposal amends Section 127 so that a board's paramount objective in governing a school is to ensure that every student at the school is able to attain their highest possible standard in educational achievement. Making educational achievement the paramount objective focuses boards on what matters the most. I want schools to focus on getting back to the basics and getting them right so that all learners have the knowledge, skills and competencies they need to reach their full potential. Some submitters supported this proposal and agreed that schools need a sharper focus on academic progress. Others were not supportive and were concerned that this was too simplistic and risks undermining a more holistic approach to education. I believe that New Zealand's learners deserve to attend schools where their attainment and their educational achievement is the highest priority. And I acknowledge submitters' concerns and understand that some may think that the focus on educational achievement may demote other objectives. But to meet their paramount objectives, schools must continue to meet the other essential and supporting objectives. This bill also adds a new attendance objective into Section 127. It requires boards to take all reasonable steps to ensure that the school's students attend the school when it is open. Students cannot achieve when they are not at school, and this new objective will strengthen the focus of school boards on their attendance obligations. Another new objective is that boards should ensure that their school uses good quality assessment and aramatuai information to monitor and evaluate students' progress and achievement. I understand that school boards will need time to implement changes to give effect to these objectives effectively, and I'm pleased with that the committee has recommended amending the date to which school boards' next strategic plans take effect from the 1st of January 2026 to the 1st of January 2027. This additional time will enable boards to consult with their communities and properly reflect the new board objectives in their strategic plans. Another important proposal in the bill involves changes to initial teacher education and improvements to the Teaching Council disciplinary and competence process. Students receive great education and achieve success when schools have a strong strategic vision and quality teaching workforce. And I'm committed to ensuring that we attract, train and retain great teachers. That's why this bill proposes to strengthen initial teacher education through greater government involvement in standards for teacher registration and practicing certificates and approvals of initial teacher education programs. These changes strengthen the processes that the Council is required to follow. This is critical because teachers have a very strong influence on the educational success of learners. The quality of teaching is one of the most important factors influencing educational outcomes. That's why the bill also makes changes to the Council's disciplinary and competence processes to ensure that they are effective. It's essential that the systems supporting teachers are robust and fit for purpose. And I want to thank the Teaching Council for their support of these proposals, which will help support its functions and strengthen the education system. Another key proposal in this bill is increasing the amount of days' notice that unions must provide before they strike from 3 days to no less than 7 days. Parents, caregivers and whānau have expressed that they need time to make alternative care arrangements should their school decide to close because of a strike. And I agree, and I think that schools need more time to determine how to manage the potential disruption of strikes to students and their families. Some submitters were concerned that this could limit workers' right to strike, but let me clarify. This only applies to the notification period that unions must provide before conducting a strike. It does not limit workers' rights to engage in lawful industrial action. Rather, it just provides more time and more reasonable time for families and schools to arrange alternative care to ensure students' safety and well-being. Madam Speaker, finally, the bill makes a number of necessary changes to provisions on issuing principal eligibility criteria, international student fees and the use of national student numbers for researchers. These amendments simply help maintain the health of the education regulatory system and ensure that law and practice remain well aligned. Again, I want to express my thanks to the committee once again for their recommended changes and to the members of the public who made submissions. The bill is just another step towards improving student achievement and attendance objectives, developing a workforce of the future and establishing a knowledge-rich curriculum. New Zealand learners deserve an education system that helps them to achieve their very best potential. And the bill supports a robust education system that this government is focused on achieving. And with that, I commend the bill to the House.
I don't think we need to, Mr Bennett. As it's now reached 12:55, the House stands adjourned until 2 p.m. today. Thank you.